365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Now the throw across the middle. That was caught. And on a broken tackle, J.P. Richardson. Touchdown.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
And here's Green. He's going to keep it. And Green breaks loose. Garrett Green across midfield and forced out of bounds at about the 25 by D. Winters.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Lance Leipold's group with the 14-zip lead on Matt Campbell's Iowa State team. And Jalen Nolan is out to the races. Down the sideline. Noel tripped up inside the 5.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
R.J. Harvey, direct snap. He keeps it, and now UCF has a touchdown to start the ball game.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
And here we go, Wednesday. First full week of the college football season. A little bit later today, we will break down 4 games, 4 schools for the Big 12. We did 4 yesterday, 4 again today. That will be in the 5 o'clock hour. Eli Lederman, ESPN, will join us. Taylor McHargue from ESPN and CBS will join us. A color analyst on television, Tarleton State football coach Todd Whitten. Ari Temkin from the Big 12 TuneIn Radio Network, and also Brian Driscoll, who covers Notre Dame. That game Saturday night in College Station against A&M. And Paul's Top 5. Good afternoon. Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina. I was just saying this, that like every day we have a mass, I guess a group text, and there's always constant, even the night before, stories in college football. And then today was pretty quiet. Then all of a sudden there was a little bit of a run towards the end of the last couple of hours or so. So we will get to those stories here momentarily. Please hit the like and subscribe button if you have not yet done so, and spread the word as well. So A.J. Perez with this story. Colorado football reached out to the Pac-12 last year about potential unauthorized access to its practice video and data service. Front Office Sports with the story. A blowout loss after Oregon. They alleged that Oregon played a role in the potential breach.
Maybe. I mean, look, this is, I think.
No, there was no maybe. They did not play a role in it. That's what's said in the article, is that Colorado, after here's the first thing I'll say on this, is I was expecting to jump in a different point. You got your ass whipped when you're accusing the other team of breaching your video systems and looking through all of your tape and getting an advantage. That's how bad you got your ass whipped if you were Colorado last year by the Oregon Ducks.
that was a smoldering.
So you're probably trying to come to grips with the fact that you got beat that badly. So somebody might have tapped into our video system. No, they said that there was some irregularities that were spotted allegedly by Colorado in terms of their video system, and they made this. They reached out to the Pac-12, and the Pac-12 actually tried to follow up with them after, not finding anything, and they tried to follow up and work with Colorado. And Colorado, at that point, I guess had seen the writing on the wall that their allegation wasn't really holding any water, and they didn't follow through and pursue it any further, particularly after the company that runs their video systems and all of the security that would entail had looked into it as well and said, we found nothing. There's no breach. There's no stealing of your video. So Colorado reached out to the Pac-12, said, hey, we think that this might have happened. Then they got the follow-up that nobody's saying that this happened, and they basically dropped it. So that's basically what happened. They're not pursuing it any further because it's pretty clear that, no, there wasn't anything to this. But I can see, like I said at the beginning, where you'd think and probably hope that was the case, considering how lopsided that game was.
That was Dan Lanning,
wasn't even close.
Well before the game, the week of the game, making it very clear that this was going to be an ass-kicking.
Yeah.
And it was from the beginning.
He definitely He definitely did that. I'll also say this, though. You're going to see more teams maybe a little bit more squirrely about this. There are some people at Michigan that are kind of happy that Connor Stallions is probably out front of this scandal, because the bigger issue is the guy who got arrested for computer access crimes, and we don't even know the full details of that yet.
Where's his Netflix doc?
Yeah, like where's his Netflix doc? And
is he mentioned in this one? Because I haven't watched it.
I haven't watched it.
Yeah,
No.
So
but
we might be talking.
So you had a coach arrested for that, and there is speculation that what he was doing was breaking into other teams' huddles.
Okay.
Huddle fine, not the huddles in the field, but huddle.
HDL.
Yeah, the huddle.com
yeah.
account. So that's what the speculation around that is. So this is something I think you're going to see more and more of, because you don't trade film through the mail or, in a car anymore. It's all just online. There's going to be that paranoia or sense that somebody's always going to try to gain that edge. And when you have an assistant coach at Michigan get arrested for computer access crimes, not even knowing what the full breadth of that is right now, I'm sure there's coaches that are like, well, what was he doing? Like, his job is to watch film. Where's his interest and his expertise? Does that have something to do with us? They're already stealing signs, right? Like, it just...
What did Phil Bennett say to us earlier this week? That it's been going on forever. Now, again, it's a little bit different because
hacking a computer is a little different.
Yeah, because of technology changes. They couldn't do that in 1975 or 95 because it wasn't really available to do that. But the stealing of information, playbooks, etc., has been going back a long, long time. Now, one of the things that has bothered me the most, the changes in college football have not bothered me, although I would like to see some of them not quite as dramatic. And yeah, there's part of me that wants to grab and hold on to some of the rivalries, et cetera. But I'm good with where we are. Everything's changing. But one of the things that drives me crazy is how many times the NCAA and college football coaches or basketball coaches, this constant musical chairs with the transfer portal. It's like, can we ever just go through a full cycle without it changing even before we get to the end of the full cycle? This is Nicole Arbach, and of course NCAA released this, that they're looking at opening up a transfer portal window the Monday after the conference championship games in early December and all the way until the early part of January. And of course, if you're a part of conference or the championship playoffs, then you get a little bit more of an extension. So wasn't that the original? And then they added the spring. And then there was so my question is, why don't you just let it play itself out and not overreact or underreact to just the first year? Because it's really constantly, it seems like this is being changed.
Well, I think they're trying to do this so that they don't have to worry about it next year in the spring window. Like, that's what I think. I mean, this is...
Well, sure, that's why...
and so I think they saw how it went. They didn't like how it went. And...
Who would have never thought it was not going to go that way? Why didn't they have enough foresight to understand this was not going to be...
Well, they didn't do it willingly. I think that's the other thing, is they didn't do it really that willingly. And so if they can say, like, look how chaotic this was.
Yeah.
Now, another thing that probably is going to happen with all this is we've heard so many coaches say instead of spring ball, let's do OTAs, which I think that will help all this as well. When you're talking about building personnel out in a professional model like they are now, I definitely think that that's going to be something you see. But, yeah, I think they're trying to fix what they think is wrong right now and jam it all in December and just decide, like, look, if we're going to have a chaotic month, let's make a chaotic month, and then let's let the rest fall normally.
Yeah, I think, and I know what you're saying is actually, like, why can't you leave well enough alone and just let it play itself out? But you're also complaining about the chaos when they're making the rules to try and eliminate some of the chaos. So the things that you don't like is what they're trying to address with changing it up once again. They're trying to get it right. They're trying to get it to where it's less chaotic, not more chaotic. So that's where I agree. You wish the rule could just be the rule and you leave it alone and it wasn't a constant conversation piece. But that's the thing about it, is it's not just something that was a real easy decision of like, all right, here it is, and that's the way it's going to be. Like, there were curveballs. There were unexpected legal rulings. There were a lot of things that have occurred over the last 2 years that, you had trial and error, right? Like, you try something and it doesn't work, and then you go and you change it and you tweak it and you try to make it better. And I think that's some of what's been going on with the transfer portal, is a combination of just a lot of different things. So, yeah, I'm kind of tired of hearing about the constant maneuvering around of it, or at least what feels like that. But I think ultimately this is an effort to get it right and to make it less chaotic for everybody. So,
when would be the best time for the portal to be open, in your opinion?
that's the thing with college football calendar. There's no great time for anything.
No, there's not. That's exactly that was my answer.
Because the first thing that you see when somebody says, well, what about the playoff teams? And the guys will bail on their playoff teams. And I don't know. I think that's a valid concern. But, then there's the whole argument about getting people enrolled in classes. And, like, look, if you're going to transfer, we can't have everybody have their way.
Yeah.
And, like, that's kind of what it feels like was trying to be attempted in some ways, of, like, the NCAA just, we'll let this go and we'll let this go. Like, everybody's happy, right? And there was a period where it was kind of like that. Now they've started reverse on that. I think more than just the NCAA, I think across the country, people are, like, trying to figure out the best way to do your business, especially in a post-COVID world, right, where there's all that craziness. And I know we're pretty far removed from that, but I just think there's a lot of decisions that have been made that, you're not right the first time every single time, and especially for college football these last few years, it's been such a whirlwind that I think there's just a matter they're still figuring it out and figuring out what the best procedure would be. But like I said, there's no perfect time on a college football calendar. Well, if we do it in the summer, well, winter coach is supposed to rest up and winter players supposed to go to the beach. Well, do it after the spring. Well, what about there's always going to be a complaint. You're not going to make everybody happy. So attempts to make everybody happy are just going to end with not being good enough.
The issue in December is teams are still playing.
Right.
Some, like you said, could maybe leave if they're offered something nice. And National Signing Day is in December. And it's kind of like just all chaotic to me. And I don't know if we've really discussed this much. To me, the decisions that were made during that COVID stretch, and there seems like there were a lot of them, but the one to me that was like, what are we doing, is when they granted an extra year of eligibility to people who were a part of the class of 2019 and 2020. It, to me, made no sense whatsoever that was another year. And that's created now these 6, 7, 8 years. I know that's just 1 year, but it's almost like I never understood that. And especially for those who had played their season. Their season was over, had played it. And
I think that was pretty obvious.
All but over. Yeah.
That was pretty obvious why they did that. It was because it was not what anybody considered a normal year. It was a funky, maybe you played all your games, maybe you didn't, maybe you got sick, maybe you didn't, maybe like that was a COVID decision.
For the spring sports, but the football stuff, that season had long been
that
gone.
was the season. That was the season that like barely happened.
No, 1920. I'm talking about the school year of 19 and 20. I get, because COVID started in the early of 2020. You're talking about okay, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, because 1920
right.
wouldn't have got a bonus year.
The COVID,
it hadn't happened yet.
No. I think that when the basketball tournament was shut down in March of 2020.
Football players didn't, though.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah, football players didn't. Football players got it the next year.
Are you positive?
Yeah. I'm absolutely positive.
Right,
so the 19 football season, those guys didn't get an extra year. The 20 football season, they did.
Well,
and that wasn't the plan at first. And then, through the season, that's where it happened. So the 2020 guys for football are what's happening to now. There's some 2019, 2020 basketball and baseball players that are softball players.
It happened in the springtime.
It's happened in the springtime, but the winter was over. That was, yeah.
You know what I hate is when I'm right.
Well,
because otherwise you guys aren't here. I mean, what are you here for? Otherwise,
that's why you're skipping down the hallways. Then always so happy. No, I just think that it's a tricky thing. You're trying to thread a very small hole, and so it gets tiresome seeing those same headlines. It also gets tired hearing people bitch about it too, and I'm as guilty of that as anybody. So it is what it is. Maybe this will be the one that gets it right, and we can just live with the transfer portal that sits in a spot, and we know where it is and when it is and what it's all about. Versus, kind of what it's been the last 2 or 3 years, I guess, with dueling windows and plenty of people complaining about that. So, again, whatever you do, there's going to be complaints about it. So they're at least trying to calm down some of the noise.
I never thought the secondary window was ever a good idea, but that's me. All right, now, and maybe if I would have been an athlete
I don't think it's functional for both parties. I think it puts the athletes in a position where they have to make a rush decision on things.
When it's December, early January?
When it's the spring window.
Okay.
When it's 15, like
15 days.
And the other thing is, this is just normal. Like in the NFL, like NFL players cannot just decide at any point during the year they want to leave and then get to leave at two different points. They have a window.
Yep.
Well, and he's also complaining about something. I don't mean to make it sound like that, but you're also complaining about something where you don't have to deal with the lawsuit that comes with that. When you say, well, I want a spring window and that's all I want. And then, okay, well, the wide receiver just sued your entire university because that's, restrictive trade.
Him, yeah, exactly.
So
right.
that's part of what they also have to deal with that we don't.
Well, most of the
consider.
decisions have been about lawsuits, haven't they? I mean,
yeah. So there you go.
And
this one will probably get challenged too by somebody somewhere. I'm sure there will be.
Yeah. And, but I do think that if you start, they're going to have to start negotiating with players anyway and revenue share and all those things and say, look, you've got a 30-day window and that's your free agency period. And I think that ultimately that will probably work out and that will probably hold up if it's negotiated through both sides. The problem is that, I'm now here in the spring and I don't want to go, but, I realized I didn't like it. Well, sometimes you got to learn lessons. Like sometimes there's consequences. Everybody can't be happy all the time.
What did you say? That makes so much sense. I've said that 100 times.
Sometimes there's consequences.
I get it, yeah.
When you decide, like, okay, I want to go to Louisville, and then you get to Louisville, like, I don't like it here. And like, I really want to go to UCF, and I'm picking on Penny Boone a little here, but
well, if anything, this eliminates the guys who were just hopping for starting spots after spring ball. So, then again, like, I'm sure that was something somebody somewhere was complaining about the last couple of years. Well, now that's been eliminated. So again, it can't be perfect. They're also doing, stuff like you can play in a bowl game and maintain your red shirt. Like, we don't go crazy over that. That's a pretty cool idea, though. Yeah. I like that idea. I don't know about you guys. We haven't talked about that at all, but that's amongst some other changes. So it's not like it's all, anti-athlete or anything, or it's restrictive. There is, other stuff they've passed that is of interest. But, this in particular, I think, would be something people would welcome because it's 15 less days. It's one less window. I don't know. It seems like it'd be far less chaotic and probably what people have been complaining about for the last 3 years. They're actually trying to alleviate some of that.
And when you go through spring drills, you don't have to turn right around within 2 or 3 days after it's over, and you have to restock your cabinet with talent and depth and starters, etc. Ross Tellinger with this story. 68 power conference teams are projected to start 43 transfer quarterbacks, 63% of the schools. The top transfers signed for $800,000 and up to $1.2 million. Will the money stay the same in the new revenue sharing model? Will transfers be limited by buyouts?
Yeah, I mean, this is the modern era, and this is how quarterbacking goes. And a lot of these teams you see that have transfer quarterbacks starting this year will also have a transfer quarterback starting next year because, whoever is next up isn't ready, and they'll go get a transfer quarterback. So eventually this does have to get balanced out because I don't think it's tenable for either side. I don't think it's good for either side. And I think it's not going to help anybody else. So, I mean, it's not going to help anybody down the line.
Part of what he's asking there is with revenue sharing and the buyouts. The NIL now, the collectives are putting together, here's the money I'm going to give you, but just like coaching contracts, there are now buyouts for players in some of these contracts. Will that affect anything? But, Craig, your thoughts? I think the money's going to be there no matter the revenue sharing or not.
As a fan of college football, I don't care where the money's coming from, I don't care how the schools have to decide to spend their money and how problematic that it may be. Ultimately, that's a part of the game that, is of interest just as an outside observer in terms of transactional roster moves and things like that. Like that'll be of interest whether a school's willing to buy out a guy to, bring somebody else in or whatever. I'm sure when there's an instance of that coming up, that will be of interest, but the whole hypothetical, probably, the money changes things. The fact that players are getting paid in general is much different than it's been for 99.9% of its history. And with that's still evolving. They don't have paying players down to an exact science, just like the transfer portal. That's still being figured out, right? There's a lot of legal tentacles that are involved in this. So I think with the schools now being directly involved, then, there's going to be things like this, and there's going to be more contract type of agreements and probably outs that you want to allow yourself because you made a bad investment. And same goes for the player. He made a bad decision. So, yeah, I think that just seems pretty obvious. That's probably going to be a part of the picture moving forward because it's becoming more of a business. So, yeah, I think the answer to that is yes. All
right, UCF, Paul, you came up with this nugget. A lot of people have unveiled their uniforms.
I have to credit my my good friends in Orlando, who I made last year. Of several of them all sent this to me as soon as it came out. So even one saying, well, make sure Craig sees this.
Oh, sweet.
Craig's a uniform. He's our uniform buff. Not that you don't have your opinion and I have mine.
But the one of them was like, hey, direct message, like, make sure Craig sees this. I'm like, well, you can tweet him too. I mean, he's.
Yeah, no, I mean, you can. But I like them. I mean, the all blacks always pretty hard to screw up, but the white really pops, some of the gold accents. I haven't read about like some of the detail work, but I'll do that at some point this afternoon. But yeah, I like the script on the helmets, and I dig them. Yeah, I think they look really sharp, and I think UCF is one of the best out there when it comes to doing the uniforms these days, and they did not disappoint here either in terms of throwing another blackout type of look out there. So these are actually officially known as the Drip U uniforms. If you want to be precise on the which ones you're talking about, these are the Drip U unis. So yeah, I mean they're cool. I like the all black, and like I said, it's something different from UCF, which they always bring to the table.
Oklahoma State. Vanderbilt had an ale that they brought out earlier this week. Oklahoma State now has their 1890 Iron Monk beer. The Cowboys, you can be a part of the tap room today. I don't see somebody put, hey, by the way, put a QR code on there and send me a case. I live in Atlanta, Georgia.
Probably will now. Yeah. Now that you gave them that idea. But, yeah, there was another story out yesterday. Was it Bud Light had all the colleges that they were going to have on cans. And I know that's not something that's never happened before, but still just cool to see that and kind of the expanding merchandising market that's going on right now with college sports because of a lot of the rule changes. But you have seen the university incorporated directly with a lot of, specialty beers, right? Like the universities, there's been numerous ones we've seen over the last few months that have come out with their own brand of, what would you call it? Not giraffe, what kind of beer is this? Is this regular beer or what's
craft beer?
Craft beer. That's the kind of word I was looking for. You've seen people across the country school-wise come out with various versions of their own. I know Iowa State has one, I think, and there's others. So, yeah, cool for Oklahoma State to do that as well. I just, from our standpoint where we sit, I just look at how much money Baylor's missing out on and schools like that because of their beliefs and hey, kudos to sticking to your beliefs. I'm not knocking that, but boy, oh boy, that's got to hurt when you're sitting there in the meetings of where can we find some extra cash infusion, and you don't have this big time cash infusion of at least a few $100,000 that everybody else has access to now and can go and promote Oklahoma State and do that, and they will not ever do that. Not ever. So
Mac Rhodes told us that.
Yeah, that's just what I always think of is man, you're falling behind a little bit there by however much who the heck really knows. But I just think it's cool in general beyond that part of it. I think it's cool that schools are able to do that. I think it's cool that you can walk around at an Oklahoma State tailgate and have Pistol Pete on your beer can. I think that's awesome. And I would have loved that when I was younger, especially. So, yeah, I think Tech was on those Bud Light ones. There's a few Big 12 schools on those. And those looked really cool, even though they weren't super crazy graphics. Just seeing that logo on a beer can and knowing you can go pop the top on one of those and walk around at a game that's just very cool where we are in that regard.
I want to do the Branch brothers because we've pushed this back since Monday, and it's a pretty cool deal because of what they're now a part of. USC, the Branch brothers, are now a part of Jordan Brand. That's incredible.
It's a cool pair to be a part of it. I think Zachariah Branch in particular is going to be really fun to watch this year. You saw him use my kick returner on the Perfect College Football team yesterday. I can't wait to see what he's like as a sophomore. Last year he had moments where it's holy crap, this freshman is good. And then he had moments of, holy crap, this freshman's a freshman. But I do think in Lincoln Riley's system, he's going to be fun to watch. And now that these brothers there, yeah, I think this is really cool.
They're the first college football players to be able to ink a deal with Jordan Brand. So I think that alone just makes it very cool to be first to do something on a big like college football, Division I football level with a brand like that. I think this just to be a part of history like that's very, very cool as players. There's some schools like Oklahoma who have been Jordan Brand the last couple of years, longer than a couple. But, here in recent history, that's become more common to see Jordan Brand cross over into football. And they've been around. Like, they signed Randy Moss way back in the day. So we've seen Jordan Brand around. But it's becoming, like, much more front and center in terms of an Oklahoma wearing football uniforms with that logo. That was – I would have never thought that would have ever have happened when I was a younger person, right? But to see that was really cool. And now to see individuals at the college level – also being able to sign Jordan deals is really sweet as well. So, that's cool to be the first college football players and, to be brothers and accomplish that and get to, have that sponsorship as a college football player. I mean, what other one would you want other than, maybe you're an Adidas guy or something, but getting Jordan Brand, that's pretty high status stuff there.
With Mahomes and Adidas and eventually what that will be as far as, of course, its value. And speaking of individuals, Shedeur Sanders, a Colorado quarterback, has inked an NIL deal with Nike. Colorado, by the way, is a Nike school. That makes sense. And so he gets himself an NIL deal with Nike. We just mentioned Jordan Brand from Nike, and now you have him. And that I'm like surprised. I thought I already had this right here. But there's a deal for Shedeur, the Colorado quarterback, who ought to have just raking in, of course, the NIL money.
Yeah, same thing for him. You grow up, you think about, if I was a professional athlete, like what company would I want to sponsor me? And you think of fun things like that. And I know if I could get a Nike sponsorship, that would be the ultimate. Jordan Brand's offshoot really that has grown immensely to becoming like its own set brand as far as being on uniforms and stuff. Somewhat recent history compared to Nike, but they're intertwined, and I think to get either one of those would have been a dream come true. The Jordan thing's just a little bit more unique because they haven't dabbled as much in football at the college level, but Nike too, to be able to do individual stuff, they could never do that until recently. So for Shedeur to get that, it's the same equivalent of the Branch brothers, just an awesome opportunity and a great deal. And I wonder how much free swag they get. That'd be the part that would be really interesting.
It'd be just
to get that shipment at the house. That'd be pretty cool.
From T-shirts to jackets to much more. Well, we'll do the Kelsey brothers deal with Amazon a little bit later on. We need to take a break. We have Eli Lederman. And then Ari Temkin today at 4:25. Eli Lederman, Taylor McHargue, Todd Whitten, Ari Temkin, and also Brian Driscoll. And we will look at 4 of the games this week in the Big 12 in the 5 o'clock hour. Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina. I'm David Smoak. Hope you've had a really good day and hope we take you up until 6 and you have fun with us right here on 365 Sports. PettyClinicalOT.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high performance man that you used to be. As you get older, your testosterone level, 1 out of every 3 to 4 men, the testosterone level naturally, just because that's just part of who you are, it can drop. Not everybody, but 1 out of every 3 to 4 men. So 3 to 4 means out of, maybe 50%, 75% might struggle. Maybe just 20, but you could be that person. And what are the symptoms? Sex drive's not the same. ED, you don't sleep the same. You've gained a little bit of extra fat around your belly, and yet you have a great exercise routine, and you also eat well. And then on top of that, your focus is not good. Your energy is not good. That could be because your testosterone levels has dropped. Dr. Petty will get you set up to get your blood. He will then take care of that appointment for you. You give your blood, he gets the results, and if your testosterone levels are too low, he can put you in a program to increase your testosterone levels so you can get rid of or work on those various symptoms you have. Dr. Kent Petty, PettyClinicLowT.com.
Get behind the wheel of the 2024 Jeep Grand Cherokee Overland at Allen Samuels in Waco. Choose between 2 or 3 rows and save $12,000 or take advantage of 0% financing. Looking for something smaller? Drive home a 2024 Jeep Compass Latitude 4x4 and save $9,760 or take 0% financing and get $3,000. Don't miss out during the Make This the Summer of Jeep event at Allen Samuels in Waco, where we deliver your next adventure. See dealer for details.
Come by. Let's be friends.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Ghost Hydration is a fully transparent, fully loaded, full-flavored hydration drink that we've all been waiting for. Ghost is caffeine-free with electrolytes, 0 sugar, and low sodium that'll hydrate your body before, during, and after your workout. Consumer loved with authentic flavors, so grab and enjoy a Sour Patch Kids Blue Raspberry and Red Berry, along with the Kiwi Strawberry, Orange Squeeze, or Lemon Lime. Ghost Hydration can truly be used anytime. Remember, it's formulated for sports, but made for life.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
When you work with a bank, you should expect the best of everything. That includes face-to-face personal service and the kind of community banking care that only comes from one neighbor to another. That's exactly what you'll get from the First National Bank of Central Texas, where you will know your banker works just as hard as you do. Once again, that's the First National Bank of Central Texas. Settle for nothing less than the first. Member FDIC.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Eli Lederman, ESPN, with us on 365 Sports with Craig and Paul. David Smoak, thank you for your time today. We appreciate that. Eli, thanks for your time. What are your thoughts? There's some great games this weekend. There's Notre Dame and A&M. There's the Clemson-Georgia game, and then obviously a couple of others that come to mind, Penn State, West Virginia. Let's start with that one. What would a win against West Virginia against Penn State mean to Neil Brown, and also be a nice little notch in the belt, so to speak, for the Big 12?
Yeah, heck of a notch in the belt for the Big 12 would be huge for West Virginia. You're talking this time last year, if you remember, Neil Brown shows up to Big 12 media days and basically says everybody has it wrong on West Virginia. You know, we all thought he was maybe on the hot seat, and he was right. And as they go into this year, I think maybe we've talked about this before. I think the Big 12 is wide open. And so if they were to come in week one and take down Penn State, a team I think a lot of folks have pretty comfortably in their playoff pictures, that'd be huge. And you'd be then, I think, putting West Virginia into that conversation at the top of the conference where we're probably right now talking about Utah, K-State, Oklahoma State, whoever you want. It would be massive.
Eli, is this a bigger game for West Virginia than it is for Penn State, or is it a bigger game, or is it the same?
I think if you're Penn State, as I just said, like if they're going to be what they're supposed to be, and finally, you know, they can go the 10-2 that Penn State seemingly always goes right under James Franklin, and that'll mean the playoff rather than just falling short of Michigan or Ohio State. That piece of it probably makes it bigger because that would be a big dent. We know the 12 team means you can lose a game early, and it doesn't knock you out, but I think that would be a major stumbling block on the whole in terms of what Penn State hopes to do, whereas West Virginia, all things told, no one's expecting them necessarily to go in and win that game, and their season won't be, inexorably altered by that loss if that's how it goes down Saturday.
Eli, are you a believer in Garrett Green and the Mountaineers in terms of a Big 12 contender? It seems like sometimes they can get lost in the shuffle just because there's a handful of teams that typically rattle off people's brains, Utah, K-State, even Arizona, Oklahoma State, before they get to West Virginia. Do you feel there's a level of disrespect, or is it just such a crowded field nowadays in the Big 12?
Probably a mix of both, but I think maybe that's, one of their weapons. Again, last year, we all were writing off Neil Brown and the Mountaineers this time of year, and they went out and had a heck of a season. And I think, Garrett Green, I've seen it both covering Oklahoma State and Oklahoma. He's dangerous. And they're a team that, maybe lurking in the weeds is the spot for them right now. But I have to imagine there's going to be a team or two that we consider right now to be at the top of the conference who's going to fall short, whether that's on performance or injuries or anything like that. And there's going to have to be a team or two that surprise us, and West Virginia might be that group.
So did the opening weekend of the season just give us a glimpse of, there's always crazy, there's always stunning upsets. I don't know if Georgia Tech was a stunning upset, but obviously with the Florida State number 10 in the country, did that weekend just tell us this is going to be bat crazy because of what's going on and also the college football playoff expanding to 12?
Well, I think, we're in for probably what's going to be the most exciting and wild college football season any of us have ever watched, which I think is awesome. And this is a really good appetizer for it. Does it mean we're going to see upsets galore? I don't know. I think that the best teams in the country are probably still going to perform, but we just saw, we spent a lot of time in the off season wondering what Florida State would look like, both as a team that lost a lot and had to add a lot through the portal, but also a program that, whether it was within the walls of the program or on the outside of the fan base, however much it matters, that was still very much hung up on what happened last year and how it ended for them, just a sour taste, and obviously not the start they would have wanted. And I think for me, that the piece that was most interesting is we heard so much about the line play for Florida State and how they were going to have, maybe the best defensive line in the country and an offensive line that could go up against anybody, and they got pushed around. And so that to me was the most interesting aspect there.
Yeah. I believe me, I heard a lot of it, Eli. Absolutely. But I'm wondering for you, which game do you think will be closer, Clemson and Georgia or Notre Dame and A&M?
Oof, that's a tough question. I think I've got more faith in Clemson this year than I do A&M. They're very different spots, obviously, so I'll take Clemson, and that maybe is betting some on the fact that Georgia may not be hitting 10th year on the opening weekend of the season. But I'm really intrigued by that game in College Station. I think Notre Dame is probably one of the most interesting up and down programs to look at this year. The high end of this for them could be really high, but as we know with Notre Dame, that when things don't go right and everything around Marcus Freeman, that there will be a lot of buzz there. And at the same time, Texas A&M, I mean, they're undergoing quite an overhaul with Mike Elko. I think sooner or later it's going to be, in a really good spot. But how far along they are on the football field this fall, we're going to start to see what that looks like in week one.
Eli, off the field, you'd hope they kind of would just quiet down in general, but there's still plenty of things going on, whether it's realignment rumors or whether it's, tweaking rules. And one of the things that we've heard about and it's been discussed for quite a few months is changes to the transfer portal once again, and looking like we're maybe zeroing in on having one portal that would occur towards the end of the season. What are your thoughts on that kind of a shakeup when it comes to the transfer portal, and whether, it's a good idea, or is it just making it more difficult for the bigger picture?
Well, I think it probably simplifies things in a lot of ways, and coaches will probably in one sense feel like, all right, we know that we can focus on one portal period, whether that's outgoings or incomings, and it'll certainly make that December period, which of course only falls at the same time that you're signing a high school class and potentially competing in the postseason. So it's busy enough. That'll get really packed in. But here's the thing. What does every coach at the end of spring camp tend to do, or program? They tend to offload guys who are not cutting it or are not going to be where they want to be on the depth chart. And that's when you go, in the summer, spring and summer, and you shop for all of your needs. Here in Oklahoma, OU went and got Dominic Williams from TCU in the summer. You can look around the country. That's been a lot of the real targeted portal work of the spots where you go into the summer needing a guy. That's where a lot of that work gets done. And if you take that away, maybe it just gets done in December instead. But I do think that for all the manpower and probably extra stress that comes with it, it's been a valuable time for programs to add further, even in probably a smaller market compared to December. And so if that goes away, you do lose that element of it.
You did a story about Notre Dame's head coach Marcus Freeman a couple of weeks ago. Paul brought up the game with Notre Dame and the Aggies in College Station on Saturday. He didn't just take over a team and there's the normal transition. It's like he went in and started to do a complete renovation of how they were running their business. And it appears, Eli, that more aggressive when it comes to recruiting than even Brian Kelly or and maybe anyone else. How did he do that?
Well, it's as I appreciate you referencing, as Al Golden mentioned in the story, maybe the perfect guy at the right place at the right time is Marcus Freeman, because look, Notre Dame is not some small program. I mean, there's only a handful of programs, in the country you'd rather be at than that with the prestige and everything they have. But there's limitations around Notre Dame in terms of academic standards, in terms of, lower C conservative, in terms of their approach to NIL and things like that in the past. But I think Marcus Freeman has been able to take what is a really attractive product in Notre Dame and he's modernized it, and whether that's in pushing their NIL arm and how they're doing that, or pushing in recruiting to taking them to places they haven't gone before. We know Notre Dame is always going to recruit the high-level private Catholic school kids across the country, but he's gone into Texas, he's gone to New Jersey, he's gone to places they haven't always gone and found kids, as he puts it, who maybe don't realize that they fit the Notre Dame mold. And I think over time that's going to work. And I hope, for his sake, that there's patience there in South Bend. We know that runs thin fast. And I do think, this year is pretty pivotal for them to make the playoffs. But I think over time, he's going to have those incremental pushes to make them better in terms of the talent they've got. And if you consider the fact that Notre Dame's path now to the playoffs, like most programs, but especially theirs, is so much smoother in a 12-team format, I think that could be kind of the combination that brings Notre Dame football back a bit.
Eli, what were your thoughts of the story earlier this week that popped out with UConn, at least the discussion? First of all, we didn't like the timing of it. We're not so sure it's a good idea. Your thoughts about UConn, the Big 12, football later, basketball now, obviously with what Hurley has and Gino. Just the fact that story came out this week when we've had this entire summer.
Yeah, as far as the timing, maybe it was just about when that meeting was. Like, as we know, it was quote unquote an informational meeting, but that also tells you that it's far enough along that, you've got, essentially the group of people trying to make this move happen, presenting it to Big 12 presidents and ADs. As far as I'm concerned, I see why the Big 12 would want it for basketball. But if you're a UConn fan, what's the bread and butter there? It is those basketball programs, and they don't need the Big 12 to win back-to-back titles. They don't need it to power the best women's basketball program of the 21st century. So I don't really know what's there for UConn other than obviously more money, more exposure, but playing in a league and having those road games. And, Storrs, Connecticut to Stillwater is not a pretty frequent trip. I don't think many take, and same to Waco and so on. So I struggle to see it from a practical standpoint. But as we all know, it's not about practical, or it's all about football, and it's all about the money. And it's for that reason that it's being presented. And it's why I think it's certainly a possibility, even if for all of us who might kind of look at it and say, doesn't quite make sense.
Eli, you're doing well, man. It's great you're at ESPN. Thank you for being a part of the show when you're available. Appreciate the knowledge. Thank you.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Eli Lederman, ESPN, with us on many things college football, as we bring you as many different eyeballs and opinions and columnists and analysts and stuff each week, not just this week or last week or 3 months ago, but each week as much as we possibly can. We're going to hear, in fact, from Taylor McHargue here in just a second, television color analyst on some of the games coming up this week, too. And Taylor will join us now, right here on 365 Sports. Taylor, thank you very much for being flexible with us today. There are the Penn State, West Virginia, Notre Dame and A&M, Georgia and Clemson. Your thoughts about which of those games, all three, very intriguing, but which one intrigued you the most?
Well, I would say after our own game, of course, the South Dakota State and Oklahoma State at 1 o'clock Central on ESPN+. No, I think the game that, for good reason, has all the eyeballs on it late in the day is Notre Dame traveling to A&M. I think the quarterback matchup is certainly intriguing. Another one that you didn't mention, but that I think is really intriguing is Miami and Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest thing that I'm looking at is Florida has just been almost written off before the season starts because of how difficult their schedule is this year. And it is. It maybe is the most difficult schedule we've seen in modern college football. But this is still a really talented Florida roster. There are key pieces and good pieces that are on that roster. And I don't think people realize it's just a 2-point edge right now for Miami. And that's a game that I think late in the day also, I'm going to be paying attention to that one as well, because it would not shock me at all if Florida won that game.
Well, it's one of the hardest places to play in the country at the Swamp. Miami classically has never played well there. And for some reason, I don't know what it is, Taylor, maybe you can describe this. Why does history matter through the decades where there's always teams or places that you struggle, even though necessarily the talent is not the same as when you struggled before?
Well, there's something to, I think you hit the nail on the head. There's something to, there are certain atmospheres that are just difficult to play in, and it doesn't really matter what the situation is. I know this is a neutral site and it's not exactly the same reference, but I always think about Red River rivalry, right? Texas and Oklahoma, every time they get together, anytime that spread gets more than 2 scores, you take the underdog, because that ends up being a 1-score game every time. And there are just certain rivalries and there's certain matchups where it feels like water finds its level and it doesn't really matter what the situation is. And for this year, especially for Miami, what I think about is Cam Ward. A lot has been made of his journey from FCS Incarnate Word to Washington State and everything he accomplished there. But this is still a first year in this system at Miami, and it's week 1. And if week 0 taught us anything, these are, for all intents and purposes, it's basically your first live scrimmage in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. It is more than a scrimmage because these games count and they matter. But for a lot of teams, especially in this portal era, it takes a little while to get their legs underneath them. And there will be more of these upsets and even teams that maybe pull it out like SMU did against Nevada. But there will be some surprises in week 1 because, again, you just have so many pieces that you're bringing in the portal era and trying to get them to gel really quickly.
One of those, early surprises last weekend was the Georgia Tech victory over Florida State, although there were some who anticipated that because of the fact that FSU has struggled against the Yellow Jackets. There was not elite quarterback play, I would say, in this game, Taylor. But what jumped out to you from Haynes King, from DJU, and from that game?
Well, I would say 2 things. I think there was too much hate given to DJU. I thought he played fine. He played about like what we expected from DJU. I think people, I'm not sure what they expected this new version of DJ Uiagalelei to be at Florida State, but they kept the ball off the sidelines. They tried to not have him drive the ball down the middle of the field where he traditionally struggles. He did not hit the chunk plays down the field, which would be my biggest criticism. But he wasn't the reason they got beat. Florida State got beat because they just weren't physical enough in the trenches. Georgia Tech pushed around both sides of the ball for most of that game up front. And especially down the stretch when Georgia Tech basically ran a 4-minute drill and ate up the rest of the clock, kicked the game-winning field goal. I thought that was really telling, just the physical edge that Georgia Tech had. The only thing that I will say, that just to defend Haynes King, because the numbers weren't gaudy by any means, but he had a couple throws in crunch time down the stretch that were really impressive. There was a 3rd down play. It was coming off a penalty. He's got pressure in his face. Looked like maybe in the past a play that he likely scrambles. He steps up, throws a crossing route with people in his face, and puts it on a dime. And it was a 1st down where they end up, it's a scoring drive for them. Otherwise, they would have been off the field. And I thought that was a really impressive. There was a couple throws that really stood out. And he played well enough for his team to win. He didn't have to put them on his back because, again, they ran the football really well against Florida State.
Taylor, you mentioned a game that I think is incredibly it's intriguing with defending national champions South Dakota State, Oklahoma State, obviously the consistency of Mike Gundy. And they got that shocker last year with South Alabama. But South Dakota State's really good. Give us a little bit of breakdown about what they can do and what Oklahoma State needs to be worried about.
Well, for Oklahoma State, it's a team that has the second most production in the country coming back. They bring back almost everyone on this roster. And the first part of last season, what was interesting is Ollie Gordon ends up being the Doak Walker winner at running back. He didn't touch the ball hardly at all in the first 3 weeks. Alan Bowman, their quarterback, they hadn't decided on him as a starter until week 4. So there was a lot that was up in the air for last year's Oklahoma State team, and that's why you saw them struggle so much. They right the ship. They end up having a good season. They make it to the Big 12 championship. But Mike Gundy and his staff, they've talked about it. It really felt like everything that they accomplished last year was building towards this year, where they have all of these key pieces are coming back. They're in their second year under Nordo on the defensive side, where they changed that 3-3-5 defense, and they struggled some last year implementing that. I feel like they've turned the corner. So for Oklahoma State, I think this is a team that you've seen them on a lot of projections as a team that makes it into the expanded playoff, and I think they're a favorite to be, at a minimum, get back to the Big 12 championship against likely Utah. But on the other side, like you mentioned, South Dakota State hasn't lost a football game in 2 years, and when they did, they lost to a ranked Iowa and lost 7-3 in a game where they didn't give up a touchdown. It was 2 safeties and a field goal. So this is a team in South Dakota State that is used to winning. Their head coach has not lost a game yet as the head coach, and they bring in some key pieces, bring in their quarterback again. And there's a couple. The thing that I think most Oklahoma State fans are worried about is starting slow, and if South Dakota State builds up a lead and is able to play keep away, that's the biggest thing that I think Pokes fans are worried about.
Taylor, when thinking about the Big 12 championship and who could find their way there, I think Oklahoma State's obviously very much in that mix. Part of my hesitation is Alan Bowman, just because I think in comparison to some of the other quote-unquote contenders on paper, granted that could change when the actual games are played, I just don't know that he's as good as some of the other QBs. But am I disrespecting Alan Bowman's skill set, and are others as well? Because it kind of seems like some of what drags down the opinion of Oklahoma State is Alan Bowman, probably more than anything else.
Well, Alan Bowman's season was interesting last year because, like we talked about, he wasn't named the starter originally.
Yeah.
He goes back and forth. He's named the starter. He has this really solid chunk of the season, about 6 weeks in the middle of the year, where he plays really well. And then down the stretch, he has several interceptions in the last 2 or 3 weeks of the season, and one of which against they play BYU, have to go to double overtime to make it to the Big 12 championship. He didn't play that great, and I think that's Oklahoma State fans. If you go back and look at the end of last season, there is definitely some concern about what version of Alan Bowman do they get. Is it the consistent player that they had in the middle of the season last year, or is it the guy that had some turnover issues at the end of the year? The thing that's interesting, and what I'm looking for in week 1, Alan Bowman has said himself wanting to get better at pulling the trigger on downfield shot plays when he feels like it's there. When there are openings, maybe times where he didn't pull the trigger on a throw where it was right there in front of him and he was indecisive, those things jump out on film because there were throws to be made. And I think that was later in the year, especially when he was having the turnover issues. I don't think he trusted himself. I think he's certainly a top third of the league quarterback, or at least he has that potential to be that. But the turnover issues have to improve. Otherwise, they're not going to reach their potential. That said, the last thing I'll say on Oklahoma State, they are going to run the football with Ollie Gordon. They're going to try and get him 20 touches a game. And if they can run the football as effectively as they did last year and clean up turnovers for Bowman, this is going to be a really good Oklahoma State team.
Bowman can sling it, but yeah, the touchdown to interception ratio, 15-14, you can't have that. Is it sometimes, you kind of explained a little bit about what goes on. Is it also the fact that he's a gunslinger and he just thinks he can fit something through a tight hole?
I think there was certainly some of that. Some of it was trying to make plays off script, and it's just not there, and get rid of the football. And that was the piece that I think was most surprising, where last year he was a sixth-year quarterback. Now as a seventh-year quarterback, you typically don't see that from a guy that's been around college football for that long. But again, the thing to me is less so even the turnovers, because I do think just naturally that will improve this season. I expect him to turn the ball over less. But I'm really looking to see is he as indecisive in those critical downs as he was last year, because that was something that jumped out on tape on third down shot plays where maybe there's an opportunity to fit one in and he checks it down and they don't pick up the first down. Those plays were there last year that if Oklahoma State's going to take this next step, Alan Bowman has to hit those plays.
Taylor, how nice is it to have college football back?
Man, it is so nice to actually be talking about real football and not EA Sports, home field rankings and power rankings and all this stuff in the media days. I think week 0, I'll say it again, week 0 showed us the beauty of college football, and I think it's always been this way, but especially now, there are going to be some upsets in week 1. And I think I saw something earlier today that had all the betting favorites and all of these favorites across college football, so all the name brand teams, all the betting odds, just that these people are hammering the favorites. And it's funny because it happens every year. These teams sneak up and bite a heavy favorite in the butt. And again, it's the beauty of college football. And I promise you, we will see at least 1 or 2 of those in week 1.
Taylor, one more question, if you don't mind, about quarterback play. And we appreciate you again today and the weeks we have you. When you look at the SEC with yours and, of course, Carson Beck right now and many others, Jackson Dart, does Connor Wigman get enough attention? Do you like what he might bring to the table with A&M and a first, I don't know if it's his first full off season, but the coaching change and what he might, is he overlooked a little bit?
I think he's certainly overlooked right now, but just because I think there are, and I think it's fair, there's just a lot of uncertainty there. You've got these other pieces in the Big 12 that it feels like you have more clarity on what that quarterback spot is. You mentioned Carson Beck, Quinn Ewers, a couple of the guys that are going to garner the bigger headlines. But Connor Wegman, I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. I got to see him for the first time up close at the Manning Passing Academy, and I get they're in shorts and t-shirts, shorts and t-shirts, just throwing the ball around. But he looked really good. He was on time. He was accurate. He looked the part. He carried himself the right way. And from everything that A&M has said coming out of camp, it would not surprise me. We talked about another team that it would not surprise me if they beat. I mean, they're favored right now against Notre Dame, but he's obviously going to be a big part of that. And I think, to your point, perception of him will change immediately if they beat Notre Dame and he plays even mediocre. But he is getting overlooked right now. I think the biggest thing is just it's an unknown for most of college football fans with Connor Wegman.
You pumped up? Craig asked you football season. You excited? I mean, this is it, right?
Absolutely. We got Kansas tomorrow night. They're opening up with Lindenwood, and so we've got them on Thursday night, and then we'll head down to Stillwater on Friday and get a couple Big 12 teams, get to see some of the better quarterbacks in the league in week 1. It's really fun sitting here going through prep. We're really fired up.
Man, the mystery surrounding the health of Jalen Daniels, you'll get to see that up close and personal. That's been an ongoing wonder, I think, around the league and around college football. So sounding like everything's in order for Lance Leipold and company as they get this thing started up?
Yeah, that's another team that, especially on the offensive side, a ton of production coming back. And Jalen Daniels, from everything that we've been told and everything that they've communicated to the media and everybody else, he's good to go. There are no issues. There's no health concerns. We'll obviously see tomorrow. He hasn't finished a full season before, but this is another team. To me, this is the biggest dark horse playoff team in the country because they're already ranked, so it's not that much of a dark horse team. But they've got the pieces in place right now to make a run at this conference. All 3 of their top pass catchers are back from a year ago. Devin Neal, one of the best running backs in the country, is back. They've got some good production on the defensive side as well that's coming back. I think they've got the best corners in the league on either side of the ball in Kobe Bryant and Melo Dotson. So, look, I think Kansas is a really good football team, but they are a playoff contender with Jalen Daniels at the helm. If he's not in, you're looking at, again, a ceiling of probably 8 or 9 wins like they were last year.
Thank you, buddy. Taylor McHargue with us. 2 games on his docket as he is very flexible, versatile, and does his thing with the games that he has, including KU, Lindenwood, and then the Oklahoma State, South Dakota State game, too.
Yeah, I like being able to get a former quarterback's thoughts on just quarterback play. And an array of interesting guys that we talked about there, from Bowman to Daniels to Haynes King to DJU. So I like that he's like, I don't know what people were expecting with DJ Uyunglele. Like, this is who he is, and that's who he's going to be. And it's not like he was going to magically morph into this, different version of himself because Mike Norvell was coaching him or because he's in Tallahassee. So just getting that different perspective rather than what we saw a lot of on Saturday, which is like, God, can he not throw a pass more than 2 yards down the field? Like that was the big thing that we kept getting from that game was just how, how dull that was watching.
You know what's funny? Because I was watching it during the fantasy football draft, so I kind of was focused on one thing for a second, and I looked up after the first couple drives, and he was like 9 of 11 for 90 yards or something like that. And I was like, oh, well, that's really good yards per attempt right there, And I was like, that's up. And then I'm looking, and then I go back and like click over to the box score.
You're a mess this week.
Yeah. Click over to the box score, and I'm looking at all the big gains, and it's a dump-off pass that somebody went and got it yards after the catch.
I was surprised. I didn't get to watch him a lot as much as I probably thought before, but I thought he looked very sluggish as far as his athletic ability. Maybe I was expecting more than that. Todd Whitten, the head coach at Tarleton State, just around the corner. They have already got a win under their belt with a nice win against McNeese State. And they play Saturday evening at McLean Stadium. Todd Whitten, he's next. This is 365 Sports. The Baylor Club. When Baylor hosts that game on Saturday, there are members of the Baylor Club that have extra amenities that they allow, the food, the ambience, the atmosphere, the views. And then during the week, for example, I hear all the time about what great food they have on a Friday night. And I hear a lot about the fact they have shrimp on Friday nights, which is my favorite anything to eat. And then the amenities of being a part of the Baylor Club that also open up doors for you to play some really nice golf courses around the country with what they are and who owns them. Mike Mosel, the general manager, the Baylor Club inside McLean Stadium, fantastic food, chefs that cook the absolute best food your palate will taste, and on top of that, the amenities. And that sometimes is overlooked is the fact that they have meeting rooms for business-type meetings, networking, and hosting big-time events. Not just a football game where they're there, but also, for example, what we do with our academic all-stars, honoring great student-athletes, and much more. Weddings, rehearsals. It's the Baylor Club inside McLean Stadium.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgin Ford. It's that time of year, it's football season. Bird Colgin Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 selling truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, 47 years in a row. Come see the largest showroom in Texas and experience better at Bird Colgin Ford.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
It's football and tailgate season. If you want product for the grill or smoker, charcoal, seasonings, marinades, sauces, Waco Custom Marketplace is your home to help prep, cook, and enjoy your food. Tailgate must-like brisket, tri-tip, fresh-made burgers, sausage, chicken wings, and if you want steaks, call in your order and pick them up. Bacon wrap fillets or any kind of ribeyes. USDA Select, Choice, and Prime that melt in your mouth. House-made sausage and jerky. Also, Waco Custom Marketplace, a one-stop shop for tailgating, barbecue, cook-offs, and family get-togethers, fundraisers with fair prices to you, the customer. A bakery with fresh baked bread and collections of cold beer, wine, and soft drinks. Serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. A cut above the rest. Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Pizza, burgers, and
Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears!
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
We start this 4 o'clock hour. Familiar name who has joined our show before, Todd Whitten, head coach at Tarleton State. Baylor, Tarleton State, Saturday evening at 6 at McLean Stadium. And Coach Whitten joins us now on 365 Sports. Thank you for being a part of the show. I know you had a busy day. How much, and looking back on playing the game the week before, being able to get that done, can you already tell a little bit of a difference in what that meant?
Well, yeah, I'm a firm believer. I think this is year 20 for me being a head football coach, but yeah, I think you learn a lot week one, and a lot of the real improvement you make is early in the season, is between week 1 and 2, maybe week 3. So it is good to have that initial game kind of under our belt. And so I don't think there's any question. It was good for us, and a lot was learned.
Coach, one of the things I got from watching your game last week against McNeese was, I know I'm sure you've got, you have a list of things that you guys go to correct, but you've got a bunch of scrappers. I mean, that was a tight game. Both teams, were ready to throw haymakers, and your guys came through ready to get into a kind of a street fight. And you see that early in the season. What kind of feeling did you get from them after playing a tight game like that?
Yeah, well, I think we have a tough-minded football team. I was proud of the fact that we had 1 penalty. We had no turnovers on the offensive side of the ball, and we got 4 turnovers on defense. And so we played really pretty clean. We had some adversity losing our quarterback there in the first half, and so I thought we battled. Really proud of the effort and the way that our kids played really hard. And so that is certainly something you like to see right away. And so if you got a football team that's going to go out and play hard, play 4 quarters and battle, and then you got a chance. And so we, especially I think for our league and our level, I think we've got a good squad, a lot of work to do. But we're anxious about Saturday and the chance to play up a level and play on a really big stage there at Baylor. And it's just a great opportunity for our program.
Coach, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask this question, but I understand if you need to plead the fifth. How's your quarterback, Victor Gabales, feeling after Saturday?
Yeah, no, he's going to miss this week. And so he had a thumb injury, and he's going to probably be out a couple of weeks. And so but we will get him back sooner rather than later. And so I think he's a pretty good player. And so you hate that, but it's college football, and these things happen. And so we've got to get our other quarterbacks ready to roll, and I think they will respond this week.
Todd, I've known you for a while. I say that every time we have you on because of the connection in Nacogdoches, but thank you for being honest about that. I mean, I know a lot of times a lot of coaches just wouldn't have been able to say anything, or they would. And no, seriously, the transparency there. He's out. You let him know. The team knows. Let's move on.
Yeah, no question. I'm a big believer in communicating with our players, and it is what it is. And so we've got to kind of rally the troops, and and it was kind of out there for everybody to see. We were on national television on Saturday, but nevertheless. We've got a lot more to worry about in blocking and tackling those guys at Baylor, and so that's where our focus really is. And going all in on our backup quarterbacks and trying to make sure those guys are ready to go and give us a chance to win on Saturday.
When you you have to punch up a weight class this week, how do you balance out the emotion that's going to go in because your guys are going to be fired up to come into Waco and play Baylor, and then balance out the let's make sure we get better and don't just get so excited about this opportunity and lose the rhythm of preparation?
Yeah, that's a really good question, I think. We have not played our best or what we're capable of. So 2 years ago, we opened the season at TCU. And then last year, about week 2 or 3, we played Texas Tech. And we just sort of got overwhelmed and we got off to slow starts. And it's hard to dig out of a ditch like that, when you play up a division. And so, one of the real keys is to getting off to a good start. I wouldn't say a fast start, just get the game going and try to keep from having shooting yourself in the foot. A year ago, our first possession on offense, we threw a pick 6. And so stuff like that. But make no mistake, every time we tee it up, our plan is to go to Baylor on Saturday and play really well and get out of there with a win. And so we know that the odds will be against us. Again, I'm honest with our players about that. And information is so plentiful these days, so the odds on these games is out there for everybody to see. But we have a good team and we've got a lot of good players, and we've had 3 really, really good days of practice and preparation. And so our plan is to win every game we ever play. And so, we've got 26 seniors on this football team. And so I think they will be there and they will fire their best shot. As a coaching staff, we just have to do a good job of having a good plan and navigating all the different things that go into this. And so, but I think our fellows they'll be ready and again, really excited. And it's a great opportunity for any football team that gets the opportunity to play up a division.
So many changes. Jake Spavital, now the offensive coordinator. Coach Aranda now heavily involved with the defense as much as he is the head coach. Do you have, and DeQuan Finn, the transfer from Toledo, do you have any idea what to expect this weekend?
Well, I think Coach Aranda is just as fine a coach as there is out there anywhere. I know when he was a defensive coordinator, he was considered the very best in the country. And so, I think he's got a wonderful staff there. And I think they had some unfortunate things a year ago, but I think they've got all the makings of a good team. And so, but to answer your question, we got to go back and we got to look at Cal, for Spavital. We go back and we've been looking at 2019 LSU, and then also studying the personnel from the Baylor squad and the new guys and the transfer quarterback from Toledo. And so a lot of different things you've got to tend to now in these early games where there are some question marks, but yeah, it's never easy. I like the idea of the NFL where you get about 3 or 4 preseason games, but we don't get those in college. So they're all really important.
Todd Whitten, head coach at Tarleton State, with us on 365 Sports. So you mentioned the quarterback. Your team created turnovers. You mentioned you did not have the penalties and turnovers, which is nice. How much do you think from game 1 to game 2 with the adversity at quarterback, though, that you can improve? Because I was impressed. I thought you guys had that game sewn up, and then it got a little dicey at the end.
Yeah, we probably did, and I was disappointed that we didn't have a second half to kind of go out and have the opportunity to finish, and I thought it would have meant a good bit to Victor, our quarterback, and his growth, to go out and have a chance maybe to put a game away. And so, but we didn't have that. The only chance we've got to be more explosive, I think. And we got to find a way to make some big plays. Anytime you upset someone, or have a chance to, do what we're hoping to do on Saturday, you got to play clean, but you've also got to find a way to be explosive on the offensive side and try to figure out a way to keep from giving up big plays on the defensive side as well. But we made a few explosive plays on Saturday, but not nearly what we would like or know that we need to make to be successful.
I know you got to go, but one or two more questions. One, this is a separate game. It's Tarleton against Baylor. It's this year. A lot of new places, new faces, especially with the transfer portal. Do you feel like the Texas State game last year in Waco helped you or hurt you in this case?
Well, yeah, maybe, a little of both. Now Texas State has 85 scholarships.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
we've got 63, but probably a little of both. Those everybody involved in the Baylor program is going to point to that game, say let's not let that happen again, and so we can point to that game, and everybody's eligible to go and play well, no matter who the opponent, and to come out of there with a win. So we have a good football team, a good football program, and we're going to fire our best shot on Saturday.
We have had representatives from your school. And last question, Todd, thank you so much for your time, about what it's meant now. You're officially out of that transition period. You're officially Division I. What has that meant, even though that's still very fresh?
Yeah, it's really it means the world. To be able to go and have a good season and then be considered for the postseason, to have that off your back, so to speak, and as you get into recruiting situations, just about every recruiting battle we've been in the last 4 years, the fact that we were under the transition and the rules that go along with that always came up. Old Tarleton couldn't go to the playoffs, and all those things. So it is nice. I think it made our guys stronger. When you go and you battle through tough times like that, I think it's good for you in some ways. We've got 26 seniors. One of the things that I'm the most proud about with regard to our football program is we've had very few of our players leave. And we have a good many guys on this team that if they were to get in the portal, they would have many opportunities at big schools. And so I'm proud of the fact that our football team has stuck together and through tough times. And so we're excited to be through that and see what happens.
Hey, Todd, great conversation as always with you. I know you got a lot on your plate. We'll see you Saturday. Axum Jackson. Also, good luck to Tarleton State this weekend.
Okay. Thank y'all for having me on. We appreciate y'all.
Head coach at Tarleton State. We have a great pipeline to that school because of the journey that they've been under and the transition that was frustrating, remember. And here they are. This is their first official year where they can get in the postseason if things go well. I was impressed with what I saw, but how about the immediate, transparent answer to Craig, your question, which I almost like, do you ask the question because they're going to say no? Some coaches would, and he just was like truth serum.
Yeah, I mean, you ask the question because otherwise you can't get an answer, right? So
Absolutely.
If you don't ask, you can't get a response to that. So if he had no commented, that would have been perfectly fine, as I alluded to in my setup to that. But I appreciate his honesty, and it was pretty clear when Victor Gabalis didn't return in the second half that it was something pretty serious. So the good news is, if you're a Tarleton State fan, that he sounds like, a couple games at least is what you're looking at, but nothing season-ending as far as that thumb injury goes. So that's a positive update there. But, yeah, very unfortunate. You lose your starter in the opener just a couple quarters in, and he's not even available to play in games 2 and 3 and who knows beyond that. But, especially I'm sure for Victor Gabalis was probably pretty pumped up to head into Baylor Stadium and play a Big 12 team and, try to play spoiler. But, he'll have to scratch that itch some other way, I guess. But Tarleton State, the rest of his team, they still got that opportunity. And I don't think with Todd Whitten-led group, they're just going to ho-hum their way into Waco. So I think Dave Aranda and Baylor need to respect them and be ready, just like they would be ready for any other opponent, no matter health or status or whatever. And good for them on getting that first win, and good for them on getting this transition, fully on the other side of it to now enjoy and reap the benefits of that. So, yeah, I really appreciate any time we get to talk to Coach Whitten, and I do thank him for his honesty.
He was a hell of a player at Stephen F. Boston. Also was a baseball player while he was there in the mid-'80s from Kimball High School in Dallas. And think about this. This is his career path. He played with SFA, went to Kimball High School, played a year with the Patriots. Then he was not going to mention the assistant or G, but
the old bad Patriots. They're like the laughing stock, like that people that aren't 30 plus, don't, maybe even 40 plus. Actually,
that might have been the year after they lost to the Giants in the Super Bowl. Was '86 with Parcells.
I just remember that they stunk and they didn't matter, and I hated their uniforms. Now you put them in like the new closer cut, and you can make old stuff look cooler nowadays.
Blue,
Yeah, but I could not stand those uniforms anyways.
Texas Tech, New Mexico State, UTEP, Tarleton State, Wyoming, Sam Houston State, Tarleton State, Sam Houston State, Lamar, high school at Arlington Heights for a year, UTEP, and then Tarleton State has been there since 2016. He has been in many different places to pick the brains of others, and they of him. Todd Whitten, head coach at Tarleton, 6 o'clock kick at McLean Stadium. Hey, our pregames every week that Baylor is playing, every Saturday, no matter the kickoff time, we used to kind of bounce it around based on their kick time. Every Saturday, 9 o'clock in the morning till 10:30, we'll have our pregame show on KWTX, the local CBS affiliate, thanks to Josh Young and that fantastic organization with our partnership with the pregame show. When we come back, we're not done. Much more to get to. Ari Temkin, TuneIn Radio and the Big 12 Radio Network. That's next. This is 365 Sports. TexasBeefHouse.com. Another live auction going on. TexasBeefHouse.com with a live auction that started at just after 6 o'clock this morning and will run until just after 6 o'clock tomorrow night. And, oh, by the way, we are talking about a bunch of different steaks. Absolutely a phenomenal group of lots for you to buy. That you want to buy, you can get them at TexasBeefHouse.com. All right, well, I'm going to tell you some of the things they have. First of all, you go to TexasBeefHouse.com, and then there will be a box that pops up, which is Bid on Beef. And then after that, you can click on a link, and it will show you all. I got a text reminder of all of what is available with ribeyes in New York strip, flat iron steaks, and so much more. TexasBeefHouse.com, the Duvall family, going on right now, and then runs until after 6 o'clock tomorrow night. If you want something special, Wagyu steaks from their Angus cattle just outside of Tyler in East Texas, right there they do everything on their ranch. From their pasture to your plate, the live auction. Go to TexasBeefHouse.com right now up until 6 o'clock tomorrow night. TexasBeefHouse.com and BidOnBeef.com.
At Genco, our goal is to build long-lasting relationships while providing complete financial solutions for each step of life's journey. Our members enjoy fewer fees, lower rates on loans of all types, and higher yields on a wide variety of savings options. That's just a small part of the credit union difference. Visit Genco online, on Facebook, or come by one of our 5 locations today. Apply online for membership. Genco FCU, NCUA Equal Housing Lender.
My money, my future, my credit union. Genco.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions IT success guaranteed.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
365 Sports, Ari Temkin is at 440 from the Big 12 Network. I saw there was a thread on Sikkim365.com. We kind of knew that when we saw Ari in Vegas when Sirius and XM had backed out, and there was the thought that they were going to land at TuneIn, but like he even said it to us a week or two ago, that they didn't know. Like they looked up and there was like, where do we go next?
Yeah, well, Paul would probably have more insight. Ari's your buddy. Like, I think you kind of got some of the clues on what was happening there. But, yeah, Sirius, from what I could tell, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but they got rid of their ACC channel as well, I believe. And maybe I'm misremembering that. But, yeah, we knew around Big 12 Media Days, which was always like, well, that's weird. They were here, and they had as big a setup as anybody and big old backdrop, and they got probably the best guest of anybody that was at the event because they got Dion ushered over to them and Shador, and not everybody got that because, that's the power of having the backing that they did. So, yeah, I was very curious, and then we got a little bit of a word out there that TuneIn was going to take over and do something. So based on what I saw so far, like they're going to have a morning show, which I'm sure Ari will fill us more in on, and then they'll have all sorts of, game broadcasts. I guess you can sign up for a different tier and get play-by-play from all over and things like that. So I'm just glad that they are able to keep that alive in some form or fashion. And it's not a league that gets a ton of attention necessarily. So I do think that it was important to keep that intact if at all possible, especially heading into a brand new football season. Like that was the thing, is the timing of it was like, damn, if you're going to do this is like January. Let me get through this football season first. But glad they were able to come up with an alternative for Ari.
All right, yeah, no, absolutely. And I saw him. He was on a lot with Rick Neuheisel, former coach at UCLA, Washington, Colorado, a former UCLA quarterback. I reached out to Neuheisel immediately like that when we were there. Have never had a response from him, but he wasn't listed on this show.
No, it's Ari. Not the same. It's not copied.
Is the guy.
Yeah, it's not even. I think wasn't Dave Archer on there for a while, and he's not on this.
I don't know what Dave's doing now.
So I don't know. Yeah, like I don't know all the details, and I didn't keep up with the cast or anything. But I just remember him being a part of it at some point as well. But yeah, I went and checked. They did shut down the ACC channel as well. I thought I had seen that. So Sirius got rid of both, and I don't know what that meant as far as collateral damage for the ACC folks. But hopefully they were able to land on their feet as well.
Yeah, you hope so, because again they look up and all of a sudden there's no show, and so now.
Oh, actually, all the ACC hosts, half of them joined the Big 12. Just kidding.
Oh my God, stop. But you're right. I mean, By the way, Bracket Cat with a note to better get your feet wet this season, Cameron. Big 12 is a grown man's league, on a couple of people talking about joining the Big 12 and having their way.
Well, we're going to see. We're going to see early, Baylor and Utah, Arizona, Kansas State. We're going to see some of those, pack Big 12 matchups pretty early on. And, hey, it's all under one umbrella now. But there is that element. I think there's probably more of it this go-around, because when the trio of American schools and BYU came rolling in. Like, I think BYU is probably the most confident of everybody, just in terms of like, well, we play a really tough schedule and we've got grown men, and, you know, the whole history of having won a national championship, having a Heisman winner. Like, they didn't necessarily feel like they were a peg below. And I don't think the American schools did either, but everybody kind of knew, like, yeah, you kind of are. Like, it was evident when Cincinnati had their playoff run. Like, they had to, everything had to hit perfect for them to find their way in, and they did, to their credit. But you knew coming in, like, they weren't playing at the same level from day one. They had to revamp their rosters in a different way a little bit, and it needed to take some time. And you saw that last year. Like, all of them struggled.
Right.
But with the Pac schools, they're not coming in from a level below.
No.
They're actually coming in off of a year that was better than the league that they're joining this year, and bringing a lot back from several of those teams. So, yeah, I think they're walking in thinking, we're not joining a better league. We're coming from the better league. Or they're at least, and probably rightfully so, not expecting there's going to be much of a difference at all in the level of competition that they're playing. And you know what? Who's to say that they're not right about that? Who's to say? I mean, the Pac was pretty good last year. So if you were able to contend with that schedule, I think you'll be okay. I think the questions are just like, is it the same level week after week after week after week? Like, is it more of a grind? Is it the same? You know, I think those are the questions we don't exactly know just yet. But I don't blame Pac folks for thinking that they're, you know, on the same level walking in day one, because they're on the same level. Yeah. So I get that perspective.
Let me tell you something. The part that was just so, had to just be painful. First of all, the Pac-12 for that conference, and those who loved the conference and whoever else involved that wanted to try to save it, was that they were really fun to watch last year and loaded. A team that played for the national title, Oregon, that was really, really good. You still, even though USC was down, they had Caleb Williams. You had the Dion and Colorado zip factor.
Jed Fish in Arizona.
Yeah, exactly right. And
Washington.
I
mean,
like, well, I said they played for the national title.
I don't think you mentioned them by name. Or did you? I blanked out for a second, I guess. But yeah, Washington obviously at the top of that list. And some great, I mean, Roma Dunze and Michael Penix and company was just so much fun to watch. So yeah, you could keep going. I mean, there was a lot of great story. You couldn't have asked for a better send-off if you were the Pac-12, other than Washington winning that final game. But then again, would you have wanted that in a way? Because I don't know, that might have hurt more that you won it going out. It'd probably be a split opinion on, you know, what you would have rooted for in that scenario. But yeah, they took it all the way to the last game of the year, and I don't think many at all were expecting that to happen. So
it was just
you look at it two ways. Like, it was the best year you possibly could have had to end it all. Or yeah, completely bittersweet, because like, what are we doing to this thing that's pretty damn good right now? Why are we tearing this apart? Yeah, that was definitely an interesting part of last year's run by the Pac-12, knowing what was going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, and yeah, they're going to join a league that, I mean, right after they had their best year and go in, I think the thing for both sides is going to be unfamiliarity.
Yeah.
I mean, that's because, you know, you don't know, you haven't seen these styles all that much. You know, Baylor might be benefited by playing Utah again because they had last year, you know, so there's a little bit, but when Kansas State plays Utah, well, they've not played them. So they, you know, they don't know, you know, and when Kansas and Colorado play again, it's been a long time since those two teams played regularly. So the familiarity is out the window. And that's why you'll quite often see closer games in conference year over year, even though there might be a talent deficiency from one team to the other, just because they know it. And it's not as hard for the coaches to go in every week and go, all right, guys, we've never seen this before. You know, you can be like, all right, well, you remember last year, this is what they did. We're going to do this year. They keep doing it because they're good at it. And then you're better the next year. You know, that's going to be, I think, the thing in the conference this year is, you know, the schedules are all unbalanced. Nobody knows, and neither side really knows the others that well.
I think it's. I think there's a good thing about playing somebody that's fresh. I think it's it's fresh. The unbalanced schedule is still the to me the you don't know how that's going to work out. And what we think is unbalanced or a difficult schedule may not be, based on how teams play this year, because of the way it seems to be topsy-turvy. Funny thing here. So I put in the note about Todd Whitten in Sikkim 365, the premium section. First response was boom. The next one, our history against backup quarterbacks scares me. It's a Baylor fan.
Yeah.
Who was it? Trayvon Boykin. It was Chandler Morris. Just name somebody.
Well, actually, the common thread there is they can't beat TCU, period. So, yeah, if you want to say it's the backup quarterback, sure. I think it's just you can't beat TCU. It's really the thing there. But, no, that's something, again, it's the familiarity of, like we were talking about with these schools, there will be a little bit of a feeling out process that there'll be a little bit of a learning curve, I'm sure, going both ways. But, yeah, if you're Baylor, you got a little bit of a wrinkle, but I mean, I don't know how much you were pressed, honestly, by if they were coming in at full strength either way. So yeah, I mean, I get that's a joke entirely, but it's not a big deal, I don't think, in the big grand scheme of things.
So again, Baylor Tarleton State quarterback is out. Craig, you put that out there, and now that will go around college football, because you know what? Everybody wants to know about that.
Oh, yeah. Everybody's knocking down the door for that Tarleton-Baylor scoop. They're just, that Vegas is going crazy. There's so many people interested in that barn burner of a game.
But you know what? It could affect something. It could affect people who otherwise don't think this will be a good game or boring game, whatever. It might, for the degenerates, they're paying attention.
Oh, they love that. They love it. If you're one of those guys who bets on everything, who all of a sudden is a WNBA fan because, not because of Caitlin Clark, but because they're finally, putting up action on it.
If you're gambling on Baylor, Tarleton State, and you're not a Baylor or Tarleton State fan, and you're going like this 30-point line.
Go to a meeting.
No, yeah, exactly.
Get to a meeting.
That is, you are in the sicko depths with that. But no, I mean, I respect it. But, yeah, that's one of those of like, dude, did you see Gabalis is out for the Texans? That 35-point line's going to swing to 37. Like, better jump on this now.
It's better to bet on that game than a preseason NBA game, right? I mean,
I don't know if it is or not. I don't dabble with that so much, so I don't really know. Like, that's out of my purview, and that's not something that I have ever really been all that in depth with, but there's plenty of other people that could certainly answer that question better than I, for sure.
Justin R., did somebody say degenerate? Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Because I was also looking at the chat room, and some of you have said there are degenerates in the chat room.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
We say that respectfully.
Yeah. No question. When we come back, Ari Temkin from the Big 12 Network on TuneIn Radio. His thoughts about the move to TuneIn, his thoughts about this opening week of the Big 12. This is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. There's a lot of times when I give you what are numerous discounts, offers, and available, I guess you could say, prices on various cars. They have unbelievable cars, trucks, the SUVs. Shout out to what they do. Voted recently as the #1 pre-owned car dealership in Central Texas and service department. That's the Reader's Choice Award. By the way, go out and check that 2024 Jeep Wrangler 4xe and Grand Cherokee 4xe. Both are actually hybrids that will run on electric or gasoline, and they have special incentives going on. Just ask your dealer or your salesperson when you walk through the front door. Go test drive what they have. Alan Samuels, Dodge, the Chargers and Challengers, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, Jeep, of course, with all the great SUVs and more. The Wagoneer, wow, what a car. Long, big, spacious. It is an absolute luxurious SUV, and, of course, they have Ram trucks at every level you could imagine. Ted Teague, the general manager and CEO. Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, Loop 340 and east of 84 in Waco.
Get ready, Baylor fans. The ultimate game weekend experience awaits you at the Baylor Club. Kick off your weekend with our Friday Night Live pep rally. With live entertainment and special appearances from the Baylor Spirit Squad, it's the perfect way to start your game weekend with a roar. On Saturdays, don't miss our Knox Hall tailgate. Enjoy delicious food, ice-cold drinks, and great company as you gear up for the big game. And after the weekend's excitement, wrap it all up with our famous Bear brunches on Sundays. Don't wait. Make your game weekends legendary with the Baylor Club membership today.
There are 27 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
365 Sports. Games that start tomorrow night after that opening weekend that kind of got everybody off their seat or drinking heavily, quickly after the opening week. And I keep talking about the games to look at with Penn State, West Virginia, Notre Dame and A&M, the Florida, Miami game. But one of the games I keep forgetting about is LSU and USC. I mean,
Garrett hasn't forgotten about it.
Oh, yeah. I have not. It's going to be interesting. I don't know. I'm nervous to talk trash because I don't know if LSU's secondary can even contain Zachariah Branch the least bit. That's what I'm really scared about. But I also think for LSU's perspective, Caleb Jackson is going to go off in this game.
Really?
I believe so.
So is this, Garrett, you have a lot of tattoos. You have several.
Yes, I do.
Several tattoos. If Nuss goes off, will you get a Nuss tattoo?
No. I'm not getting players. I might have done the Joe Burrow stogie pick after the Natty. That would have been about the only one. But I'm not getting a Nuss tattoo.
All right, I mean, break his heart already. I mean, he has nothing to shoot for.
What was the name of the guy that was the backup quarterback at Ole Miss when the quarterback at Ole Miss got hurt? What's the guy? Was kind of a tough starter. He's been around for a while.
Luke Altmaier.
Yeah, that's what it was. Where is he now? Is he gone? Is he done? That's like 4 years ago. He might be at his third school since then.
What about him?
No, I just was
just randomly.
When I heard about Nussmeier, for some reason I was like, that's not the same guy. No, I knew that, but I was trying to figure out where he might have been. But you don't like Garrett? You like Nussmeier?
Oh, I like Nussmeier. It's going to be a transition, and it's going to take some time. And you are having to learn. You have a whole new offensive coordinator there, but Joe Sloan was your quarterback's coach, so there's that adjustment period as well. I think he's going to be really good, but he's definitely not a Heisman contender like last year.
I never thought he was a Heisman contender last year.
He's a good player. I don't know why everybody's dancing around. He's a good player. LSU's got a chance to be pretty good.
Yeah.
We'll see. It was a bad year last year. If the defense can be better, then they should be wildly improved. But can they unlock the full potential of Harold Perkins is the number one question of interest for that football team, and I think everybody's excited to see him. But Nussmeier's no slouch or anything. Altmaier, by the way, is at Illinois, so I don't know how he's still playing all these years later, but here we are, and he was young when he played against Baylor in the Sugar Bowl,
wasn't he?
Yeah, so that's why he's just a junior at this point. But he's at Illinois now, and I just completely blanked on that. But there you go.
We have Ari.
All right, Ari Temkin at the Big 12 Radio, TuneIn Radio. Ari, we had you on a couple of weeks ago. We saw you at Big 12 Media Days in Vegas, and this was kind of something that you knew was coming. But again, that unknown, the announcement this week, how How nice is it just to get that tune-in news out to everybody to find you again?
I apologize, Smoak. Yeah, something was wrong with my speaker, so I didn't just hear the first question there. So I hear you now. I heard the end of that, so I got to throw it back to you for a second. Smoak.
No, that's fine, man. What's it like to be able to finally know, and everybody else knows where to find you because of the announcement with TuneIn Radio?
Yeah, it's awesome. And look, I mean, what we're seeing right now, across mainstream media is, everybody's running towards the SEC, and so everybody's running away from the Big 12, including SiriusXM. So, this opportunity is huge because TuneIn Radio and TuneIn doesn't have any live sports programming currently, live talk shows. This is the first live talk show that TuneIn has produced and created. And so as opposed to being kind of a big fish in a small pond at Sirius, we're big fish, in a big pond at TuneIn. And we've got a lot of, access at our disposal, working head on with the conference. So it's huge. It's a great opportunity. I'm super excited about it. And, the Big 12 needs this platform. It needs your platform. It needs as many platforms as it can get because, you turn on ESPN, you turn on some of the main channels, and, you have an issue getting coverage of the Big 12, and you've got an issue having coverage that doesn't say, hey, well, I want to see 12 SEC teams or 6 SEC teams and 6 Big 10 teams in the college football playoff. So, representation for our conference is not what it was, and we need to fight for it to continue to be what it needs to be. And it's a perception thing. Perception matters a ton in this sport, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Ari, they've earned it. And I've said this a lot. The SEC has earned it by winning national titles, but part of this was just a marketing plan that's worked out really well for them as well. And the other conferences were very slow to it, and now they're all playing catch up.
Yeah, I mean you're absolutely right, Paul. I mean, like, there's a reason. It's probably smart business for ESPN and for SiriusXM for all these platforms to be running towards the SEC, right? Like, that makes sense. And you're right. I mean, from a marketing standpoint, now it's on Brett Yormark and the Big 12 to sort of spin it in a positive way. Like, I think, guys, this game on Saturday with West Virginia and Penn State. Like, I hate how big of a deal it is because it's week 1 and you're not even close to the version of yourself you want to be towards the end of the year. But this game is so important. This is very much a perception issue, guys, and we're going to be fighting it all year. And if we don't, if Baylor loses to Texas State again, or if the Big 12 has these brutal losses to the MAC conference again, the Big 12 lost 3 conference games to the MAC conference. It wasn't just Baylor losing to Texas State, guys. It was South Alabama beating South Alabama beating Oklahoma State. I mean, there was just a insane amount of bad losses for the conference that, like, not only does the conference need West Virginia to beat Penn State on Saturday, it needs Oklahoma State to beat Arkansas week 2. It needs all of these games to go the way that positively. And then obviously the Big 12 needs to take care of business against the teams it needs to take care of business against, which it did not do last year.
Yeah, Ari, I think all of the big picture questions for Big 12 fans, like, the simplest answer that I've tried to give is just win games. Like, that's the most straightforward thing that you can possibly do is win games, beat teams that are better than you, and stack those wins. And so I'm completely on board with you there. This West Virginia offseason, you just feel like, man, there is a belief there. There is a confidence there. It's such a departure from what it was a year ago. What do you think about this matchup with Penn State, and especially being in Morgantown? Like, that just adds a little extra layer of spice to everything. What are your thoughts on this one?
We actually recorded an interview with Neil Brown that will play on Friday. So make sure to people download the TuneIn app and check out Big 12 Radio. Just download TuneIn and then search Big 12 Radio, favorite it, and check us out 7 to 10 a.m. every morning. And it's funny. I started off the interview by, like, you have a lot more swag, Neil. Like, it seems like Big 12 Media Days last year when you were picked last of the conference, like, he showed up and guns blazing, and it carried over. He was on, I'm sure you saw the clip of him on Marty and McGee talking about that ESPN Top 100 list that didn't include anybody from West Virginia, which is absurd. They won 9 games last year, have a returning quarterback who's one of the most underrated quarterbacks in college football, and a left tackle, and Wyatt Milam is going to be a first or a second round pick. It's absurd to not have an ESPN Top 100 guy. So, for me, I think you just very correctly pointed out, like, there is a swag and a confidence to Neil Brown that we haven't seen yet, as long as he's been the head coach at West Virginia. And I do think that is, he feels like he's got a roster that he can be confident about. They won 9 games last year and lost 1 to Houston that they should have won, but Garrett Green threw a touchdown pass on 4th down as time was winding down that, he was super excited celebrating. He chucked his helmet on the ground, which allowed him to get in position to kick a game-winning field goal. Like that's a fixable thing for a guy like Garrett Green that's shown over the course of his career, his ability to learn and evolve as a quarterback. Some guys don't show that ability. I think Garrett Green has. I picked West Virginia to win the Big 12. The biggest reason against that for me right now is their schedule. Their schedule is brutal. Like, take out the non-conference, even just their conference schedule. Every team that's picked towards the top of this conference, they have to play. So it's a really difficult schedule, save for the fact that they start off with Penn State and still have, 2 Power Fives within their non-conference out of 3 games. So they have a brutally tough schedule. But I love Garrett Green. I think, again, his evolution. I think they've got the weapons. They've got the offensive line. Even with the secondary where they've lost some guys, they replaced them. They brought in tons of numbers in the transfer portal. Like, they just threw numbers at their cornerback and safety, and I think they've solved that. To me, it's just all these things have finally come together. And then you hear kind of the off-season talk where, things started to come out about, how much the group is together and there's no, energy vampires was one of the words that was used, where they had talented players, but was everybody pulling on the same, on the same rope? Guys, we know as we've covered this, and Smokey, this is better than anybody. You've covered teams like this. That stuff matters. That stuff matters a ton. So, that's why I picked West Virginia to win this league. And look, I think they're going to beat Penn State. And I think Vegas is telling us that too. Because when that line came out in the middle of the summer, it was a 2-touchdown line, and savvy gamblers have bet that thing down to 8 now. I still think that's too much. I'd still grab West Virginia +8 at home. The biggest thing, and I asked Dale Brown about this, Andy Kotelnicki, the very talented former Kansas offensive coordinator, now takes over at Penn State. He runs an offense that is very much antithetical to what we've seen with the Franklin teams, with the James Franklin teams. So what will they be? Are they going to be more conservative, or are they going to be more of what we saw with Kansas and Kotelnicki? That remains to be seen. But on paper, I really like this matchup for West Virginia.
Well, one thing that remains to be seen with that offense in Penn State with Kotelnicki is that, look, he had Jalen Daniels and Jason Bean, both guys who are super mobile. I don't think that you would put Drew Aller in that category. So where does that factor come from? And he probably has similar running backs and a similar offensive line, but I'm not I think it's going to look a lot different than the Kansas offense just based on the personnel that they have.
Yeah, it's a great point about the quarterback. And look, Kotelnicki, when you look at the offenses he ran at Buffalo, did he always have players like Bean and Daniels? No. To me, it's so much of it is the window dressing. It's the pre-snap stuff. And then it's how they get their running game involved. Even if you don't have a quarterback that's a weapon, that just made Kansas almost unguardable at times because it's like a triple option type attack and you don't know where it's coming from. So I think we'll see some of those principles, but it'll probably be more reliant on 2 running backs than it will be on an Aller at quarterback. And with that being said, though, it to me is such a departure from James Franklin. And, Franklin, again, just super conservative. It's pound the rock, take a few chances down the field, pound the rock, take a few. So I'm just very curious to see, this to me, it's like going from a hot tub, into a cold tub back and forth. Really, it's going to make you dizzy trying to see who wins here, the Kotelnicki offense or James Franklin.
How much do you think Oklahoma State is prepared to, not have, the big upset in week number 1? I think everybody, if you focus on being the best he possibly can be, but just a little extra something playing a South Dakota State. It just seems like they're going to be a little bit more focused coming right out of the gates. Do you expect that?
Yeah, and I think Colorado with North Dakota State. Right, there's some games here for the first week that maybe stand out from the standpoint of, are these teams overlooking the opposition? I think in the case of Colorado, everybody's drained it that, hey, North Dakota State's number 2 in the nation preseason FCS. They obviously have an incredible program. So does South Dakota State. I think those two represented 2 of the Final Four teams in last year's FCS National, Final Four. But so much of that, I think, so much of FCS success against the FBS historically has been teams getting overlooked. Mm-hmm. And I just don't think that's going to be the case for either Colorado or Oklahoma State. Now, with Oklahoma State, you do have Arkansas looming week 2. Arkansas, this isn't, it's not a great Arkansas team. It's certainly a beatable Arkansas team. But they could have that on their minds looming. I picked Oklahoma State to win the conference last year. I'm not as confident this year in them because it just feels like when expectations are this high, things don't go their way. But with that being said, like on paper, they return everybody from a team that was really, really good last year. You think Alan Bowman will take a major step forward. Ollie Gordon can he continue to be the best running back in the country? Their defense last year was so weird because statistically it looked like one of the worst defenses in college football. But it wasn't that bad. They were opportunistic. They turned teams over at times. So like the stats don't totally show out for Oklahoma State, but it just seems like, TCU 2 years ago, everything went their way in the category of turnover margin and winning close games, which are things that tend to even out year over year. And it just feels like there's some things that Oklahoma State could even out. But look, don't bet against Mike Gundy. He was a big reason I picked them to win the conference last year, despite there being no literal reasons to pick them. It was a stupid pick, but I just went with Mike Gundy. And so I went with Mike Gundy. And so, don't bet against him. And, again, everybody's back and they've got a 26-year-old quarterback. I mean, Alan Bowman's older than CJ Stroud. So there's that.
Yeah, there is that.
I love the way you said that, though.
Older than me.
Okay. All right. Now you're pushing it, Paul. No.
There you go with that hate. You hate him.
It's pretty, but I like what Ari said. There was no real reason for me to pick them. I just, I felt it. And you're absolutely right, though. It was brilliant, though.
And if it wasn't for one of the best teams Texas has had in a decade, they would have
won the
had
game.
a chance to win the damn game.
Yeah. And I mean, it looked really stupid after they started 1-2 and they were rotating quarterbacks. I said that I was like, if I would have known Gundy was going to be rotating 3 quarterbacks the first 3 weeks, I would have never picked him.
Yeah.
Why didn't he tell you that? Ari, we have been pretty obvious our thoughts and opinion about UConn and that story that was popping earlier this week and still out there. I mean, I just why, and I understand you kind of trust a Brett Yormark, but I've been told many times that this might be the thing that he just needs to let go, and he doesn't have the support. I don't know how that's going to go. What were your thoughts on where this might go?
Yeah, and we're going to have Brett Yormark on tune in tomorrow at 8 o'clock in the morning, and we're going to ask him about it. It's obvious in reading the tea leaves and talking in Smoak. I know you're well connected. You're talking to the right people, and you hear kind of the same thing. There's just not enough votes for it right now. In 2024, UConn of the Big 12 makes 0 sense to me. In 2030 or 2029 or 2031, it makes a lot more sense. And not just from the football standpoint, but here's the ultimate piece to the realignment puzzle here. What's going to happen with the ACC? I am not adding anybody if I'm the Big 12 until I see all the dust settle with the ACC. Now, Yormark may say, look, that doesn't matter. We can still add ACC teams if the whole thing implodes. But I'm not at that point yet. There is no market for UConn right now. So who are you negotiating against? There's no market for Gonzaga right now. So who are you negotiating against? I love the idea of unbundling basketball and creating sort of a mini NBA where you've got different divisions across the country. And I mean, as long as you can keep some of these, Baylor, Kansas games and Houston, Baylor, Houston, I still want to keep some of those traditional games that I hope wouldn't go away, but I get it. And look, UConn, as good as they've been in men's basketball, that's a better historical women's program. And you're adding, probably the biggest name or one of the biggest names in women's college basketball back into the conference in Gino Auriemma. So that makes sense, but none of this makes sense from a dollars and cents standpoint in 2024. And I think that's where the pushback comes from, guys. Football, Kansas football turned around on a dime with the right coach. I don't think Jim Mora is the right coach for UConn, but those things can change. Now, if you're UConn, you probably got to build the stadium on campus because they play in East Rutherford, which is, I think, 25 miles from where the campus is located. So that's a no-go. But for me, Florida State and Clemson are suing the ACC. That is a ticking time bomb. So I'm waiting that thing out to see what the residuals are. And then I'm deciding on, okay, is basketball the play here? Because none of this matters from a revenue standpoint until the deal is up in 2031, which, by the way, the ACC deal is still not up in 2031.
Yeah, and Ari, in 7 years, you mentioned turn around a dime, on 7 years, the football program is not going to be more valuable. Now, maybe in those 7 years, they could make basketball something different, but yeah, it just doesn't seem like the juice is worth the squeeze at all here right now.
I mean, guys, I went to Kansas, when realignment was first. I mean, when Texas and OU left and everybody in the Big 12 was trying to figure out where their landing spots were, it was clear that Kansas was not an option for the SEC or the Big 10 because basketball doesn't matter. And there are very few more historical basketball programs that make more money than Kansas basketball. It's like Kansas and Kentucky in terms of the monies that they generate. Like up until recently, Kansas basketball was outpacing revenue from football. There's no other programs where that's the case. I mean, even Baylor, who's won a national championship, obviously, and has an unbelievable amount of success, their football program is still going to bring in way more money. So, like, if Kansas and their basketball program wasn't enough to get them into another conference, there's no basketball program on earth that's worth that. That is the reality of the situation. Football is driving the first bus. They're driving the second bus. They're driving the third bus. If college athletics are $10, football is $8.50 of those dollars. Basketball might be $1. It might be 50 cents. And the rest of it might be 50 cents.
It's a great way to put it. I didn't think about that with KU and their value. And if no one's really, you've heard some things about other conferences, but yeah, it just doesn't.
But that's why they invested in football, Smokey.
Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah.
And the full investment in football to make them more attractive.
Absolutely.
If they need it.
Yeah. And it just doesn't make sense. But I remember back when Colorado had just decided to join, and we knew the others were going to be a part of it, or thought we did, with the Arizona State, Arizona, and Utah. And I had an administrator tell me that Brett's got all this equity built up because of what he's done for the conference. Why is he putting his neck on what will be a lost vote? At least that was the case about a year ago.
Yeah, and I think, quite frankly, and knowing your Mark a little bit, it's because he's going to always push.
Oh, yeah.
There is no sit and wait. There's no neutral, man. This dude is, to steal a Steve Sarkisian line, all gas, no brakes, constantly. He doesn't sleep. He does meetings at 10 o'clock at night on a Sunday with his executive team, and then he's up at 2 o'clock in the morning working out. I mean, the guy is a maniac. He doesn't stop. And there's nothing that's going to stop him from trying to get the Big 12 up to the level that he thinks it should be at. And we're all lucky for it.
Yep, no question. Man, I'm happy for you. Congratulations. Knew it'd work out. And I know there might have been
need to talk more regularly, I feel like.
No, yeah. Ari, we want to help, get people to know what you're doing. And a lot of people did, and they will quickly with TuneIn. We need to get you more involved in what we do, too.
We also would like to draft off your success as well. I mean,
you guys are the best. I mean, look, we go way back, right? I mean, we go way back to Oxnard and, way back before Sick of 365 when you guys were at that radio station. So, you know how I feel about you guys. You guys are incredible. It's funny, when I was texting with you guys about this, I said basically TuneIn became the Sick'em 365, in the exact same situation where it's like, all right, we're cut loose. What are we going to do? And luckily there's a great landing spot and quite frankly, a better landing spot. So, look, we're just trying to get people, download the app, come listen to what we're doing. We're just trying to grow this thing. And obviously the more content for our conference, the better it's going to be, because there's not a ton of conference. I reached out to 247, to Rivals, about writing about the Big 12 for them. And they're like, we're not really interested in Big 12 content right now. That's the way it's going. That's the way it's going, guys.
Well, sometimes when you write a book about success, you think about those who had a chance to enjoy your success that maybe didn't feel like it was there. And then put that, okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, thanks, buddy. Congratulations. Good luck with that interview with your Mark. Send it to me. And we'll put a couple of minutes up, if you don't mind, if we can do that with the copyright. Yeah.
I would love that. Yep, absolutely. I appreciate that very much, guys. Take care, and we'll talk again soon. Happy football. Football starts tomorrow night, guys.
Absolutely. It's great. It's just completely different. We finally have games to think about, and also games we've discussed. Ari Temkin, Big 12 Radio on TuneIn Radio.
Yeah, a lot of great stuff there. And, yeah, I just said it out there, but yeah, I think we need to have more Ari on this show, and a little bit of vice versa as well. Sounds like it could work for both parties, but definitely going to be interested in hearing what your Mark has to say with him, and all that's going on right now with the start of the season and the UConn stuff, and just in general, I've always found it interesting to just listen to what he has to say. So yeah, looking forward to what they get out of Brett tomorrow, and what comes out, we'll, I'm sure, be talking about it on these airwaves when we hit tomorrow at 3 o'clock, for sure, depending on, what all is said. But, the only thing I think about the UConn thing and the play there is I agree with all of that, what y'all said, and I've been very vocal about how this just doesn't really, really set off any, grand like feelings for me in terms of getting me more excited about the conference or more excited about the future or anything like that. But I do wonder if there's not chess being played here. As far as, you think about just the options that you eliminate if you take a UConn off the board for an ACC. Like, is this a longer-term play of like, yeah, we know we could wait for the ACC, or we could help their foundation weaken even further by eliminating an option that they possibly have. Mm-hmm. So that's just a thing to think about is, what kind of 3D, 4D chess is going on that we're not thinking about on the surface level that, yeah, it's a move. It's like, why? That doesn't make sense right now, but maybe it does, just not as in big of a way as it's going to make sense in about 2 years from now when they would love to have UConn available. And they, that's, and I don't necessarily know that that's the case or even fully believe that that's the case, but giving Yormark the benefit of the doubt, I don't think it's just like he's not thinking about the fact that the ACC is getting ready to crumble. I think he's very aware of that, and therefore I think he's plugged the, punched that into his formula when thinking about why UConn would be a program that would make sense right now. But I still don't love it, especially not right this very moment as we're getting kicked off with football season.
This would have been July 17th.
God, we would have loved it. Like, dude, do it in June, please.
Yeah. No, I get it.
Brian Driscoll.
Is he ready?
Yeah, he's ready.
All right. Brian Driscoll, of course, covers Notre Dame, and we have had Brian on the show before they have that game Saturday evening in College Station at Kyle Field with A&M from Irish Breakdown. Brian, thank you very much for your time. Notre Dame, top 10 team. A lot coming back, very high expectations. Your thoughts? This is a dicey game, whether this is a team with a lot of experience or not, but what a great way to start the season.
Oh, it really is. I mean, that's kind of what Notre Dame has done here recently in past years. Obviously, Ohio State 2 years ago to kick the season off on the road, and then Michigan in 2018. But it can leave you a little bit anxious, right? Because you never really know what a team is going to be when you kick the season off, and so there's just been debate for weeks about how good is Notre Dame really, how good is Texas A&M really. But at the end of the day, it's an opportunity for Notre Dame to head down into SEC country and earn a win, which can validate their standing as a program, or you don't win, and then the questions only get louder and louder about how good really is this program.
One of the great stories in this game, Brian, is that Riley Leonard's playing against Mike Elko. They know each other really well. Mike Elko loves Riley Leonard. I'm even sure that even though we had a quarterback going down when he went to A&M, he probably thought, like, maybe I should give this guy a call and see, just because he likes him so much. What have you heard from Riley Leonard, and what do you expect Mike Elko to try to throw at him, because he knows him better than anybody?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I would imagine that if Connor Wegman wasn't at Texas A&M, Mike Elko would have thought a lot longer about maybe bringing Riley Leonard down to see if they can kind of get off to a really good start. But this is an intriguing matchup because, as you mentioned, Mike Elko knows Riley Leonard and Riley Leonard knows Mike Elko. Who has the advantage? I've been asked that question a lot. Every show I'm on, like, who has the advantage this matchup? Mike Elko says that it's Riley Leonard has the advantage. Mike Denbrock kind of jokingly said that he thinks Mike Elko has the advantage. But it's really going to come down to where that matters most, in my opinion, is in the big moments. That third down, that 2-minute situation where your tendencies can kind of manifest more. Mike Elko doesn't know how Riley Leonard is going to play in Mike Denbrock's offense, but he knows sort of the thought process that Riley Leonard has in 2-minute or on third down, and vice versa. And who can maybe catch that 1 or 2 plays where that knowledge of your opponent can have a big impact, because that's what this game could come down to. When you have 2 really good teams, a lot of new faces, a lot of question marks at certain spots, it's who makes that big third down stop, or who makes that big third down play, who has that big red zone stop to force a field goal, or who makes that play to get a touchdown. I think that ultimately is going to be the outcome of this football game.
Brian, it's been a little while since these two teams have played. They have not played a lot in their history, but man, the last one, 2001, down in Kyle Field. What's just kind of I know Notre Dame plays big teams all the time. That's nothing new, but what's just kind of the excitement level to go down in front of what's a big-time atmosphere at Kyle Field and College Station, play an SEC opponent right out of the gates and kickstart things this way?
Well, you guys know Notre Dame fans love nostalgia, right? So when you're going to play Texas A&M, what do people think about? Well, when did most of the games with A&M happen? When Lou Holtz was the coach and all those Cotton Bowls, right? They think they played like 3 out of 5 years in a Cotton Bowl. A&M got the first one, Notre Dame got the next 2. So people start to, you remember that 92 Cotton Bowl? You remember when, after 93 they beat A&M? That's really what it comes down to. It's 2 traditional programs. It's two programs in different positions, different places. Obviously, Notre Dame is trying to establish itself as a powerhouse program under Marcus Freeman. And Mike Elko is trying to get things turned around at Texas A&M. And that's really what it comes down to for Notre Dame fans is, I talked about this on the show today. When Notre Dame doesn't win games like this, and I'm like, well, they beat NC State and they beat Duke, and they're like, yeah, but this is A&M. I'm like, guys, A&M was 12-13 the last 2 years, right? Like, you beat A&M, it doesn't mean you're going to beat Georgia. But for Notre Dame fans, they see that SEC emblem on the chest, and that's what it really boils down to is they feel that this is the kind of game they need to win to get validity. But I still say this game is a step towards that. But beating LSU twice in bowl games didn't give you that. Beating South Carolina in a bowl game 2 years ago didn't give you that. You want to get that validity nationally. You got to beat Bama. You got to beat Georgia. You got to beat Ohio State. And so far, Notre Dame hasn't been able to do that.
Tell everybody, we had a national writer on, Eli Lederman, ESPN. I asked him about he had written a story about Marcus Freeman. What you have seen, his growth, and what he's done to change up how aggressive they are when it comes to recruiting.
Well, recruiting aggression has been kind of their thing since he got here. I mean, that's not something that he's necessarily changed. I think what they've done is they've tried to remain aggressive, but maybe recruit a little smarter in certain situations. And so you get a guy like Deuce Knight committed, big-time player, but he's from Mississippi. The SEC is going to keep calling. So do you kind of just say, well, we got him for now, or do you focus on, okay, let's make sure that we are solidified in the 26 class, so that way maybe if we do lose a Deuce Knight, which I do think happens, then they're going to be in a position to still be okay quarterback. So I think it's also about they've been able to understand where do we need to shore up our program? Where do we need to get better? You've got to do a better job recruiting quarterbacks. So they went out and got CJ Carr, Kenny Minchie, Deuce Knight, Noah Grubbs. Got to get faster on the perimeter. They've done that through the portal and through the high school ranks. Got to do a better job recruiting edge rushers. So they've done that. You got Bryce Young, Logan Thomas in last year's class. And so I think the biggest thing for Marcus Freeman is understanding the positions where Notre Dame was not up to par with those top programs. Notre Dame has completely changed their cornerback roster over. 3 years ago is arguably the biggest question mark on the team. Now the guy that started for them in the playoff in 2020 transfers out this offseason because he's buried on the depth chart. And so that's really been the big thing is understanding if we're going to compete with those top programs, where do we need to get better? And that's where they've really focused on. So it's not so much that the aggression has changed. It's, hey, where do we need to really focus our time, portal-wise and high school-wise, to really better the program?
Brian, what do you think's kind of the, overall viewpoint of the new college football playoff and how Notre Dame fits into that? Obviously, you can't be a conference champ, so that's been well documented. Can't have that first-round bye. But how do you think that works for Notre Dame, big picture?
I think it works good for them. I mean, look, you can't get the bye, but you also don't have to play in a conference championship game. Right. Notre Dame played in a conference championship game recently, and they lost, right? I mean, so it's a dangerous proposition. So I tried to explain this to some Notre Dame fans one time. So you want to join a conference so you can play in a conference championship game so you can earn a bye. You think it's smarter to go to a conference and play the best or second best team in that league is smarter than staying as an independent and getting the number 12 or 11 seed in the playoff? That makes sense to you? I think it's just kind of wrapping their head around, oh, we don't get a bye. At the end of the day, they kind of do get a bye. They're sitting at home while everybody else that's above them is playing in a conference championship game. So I think that works out well for them. It allows them to kind of get that home game, make some money, and get themselves rolling. Maybe get a Southern team to have to come up to South Bend, Indiana in December, and get a game under their belts before they then go play one of those teams with a bye. And the way that it's going to shake out most years is if the SEC and Big Ten are as good as they normally are, then if you get a 5 or a 6 and you win, you're playing the Big 12 or the ACC champ in that second round. So there's a chance if Notre Dame's as good as they should be, that you're playing two teams that are beneath you in each of the first 2 rounds, which to me sounds like a pretty good proposition if you're Notre Dame. And I'll be honest, I was against the 12-team playoff at first, but as I thought through it, I was like, you know what? This actually has some advantages for Notre Dame. At the end of the day, when they get to that semifinal round, they're still going to have to play the same teams that they keep losing to. They're going to have to eventually lose some of those teams, but at least this way, you're getting a couple games under your belt to really get rolling into that zone and into that region where maybe you'll have a better shot to get that done. And maybe one of those teams gets knocked off before they get there.
Right.
Brian, what is Notre Dame's stance on the impending terror in the ACC, given that it doesn't affect them for football at all, but it'd be a real pain in the butt to have to find another place to park everything else?
I actually don't think it'll be that challenging, to be honest with you, because, I mean, there's obviously the AAC, but at the end of the day, what would most likely happen is their hockey team's already in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
So that doesn't need to change. But I mean, Notre Dame basketball and sports like that, going back to the Big East and playing against UConn again and restoring that, renewing that rivalry. I'd heard you guys talking about that beforehand, is not as big of a problem as I think people think that it's going to be, especially now that Notre Dame's got their new TV contract with NBC, the extension they got. Notre Dame just got a big apparel deal. What a lot of people aren't factoring in is in the last year, Notre Dame has signed a new TV contract. They've signed a new apparel contract, and they got a huge jump in revenue from the new college football playoff boost. Notre Dame's in as good of a spot as they've been financially in a very, very long time. And that's going to take some of that pressure off of, we need the ACC type of thing. There's places to go. And the Big Ten can say, hey, look, we'll give you the same deal the ACC had. And if they're not willing to do that, then Notre Dame can say, fine, we're just going to go to the Big East and renew some more rivalries in those sports back there. And the travel makes a lot more sense for Notre Dame, too, than joining some of those other leagues.
Got a question in our chat room from LFG. He says, Smokey, will you please ask Brian whether ex-Notre Dame offensive tackle Carmody is good enough to start for UCLA, or whether or not he's an FBS depth type player or starter?
It depends on his health. I mean, the problem with Michael Carmody for years has been he just hasn't been able to stay healthy. He's a talented guy. He actually got a start at left tackle in 2021 before they went to Joe Alt. When Blake Fisher got hurt in the opener against Florida State, they turned to Michael Carmody. I never felt left tackle was the fit for him. He's kind of a mauler. He's an athletic mauler type of kid. I felt he was better suited at guard or right tackle. But if Michael Carmody's healthy, he can be an FBS caliber player. He just doesn't have a lot of experience. He played in 2021, and he hasn't played much since then because of injury. And then, of course, at Notre Dame, if you're an offensive lineman, unless you're an elite player, if you get hurt, you're going to get passed up pretty quick. And that's kind of what happened to Michael. But if he can be healthy, I think Michael Carmody's a good football player. He's not, a future, day 1, day 2 draft pick, but if healthy, he can certainly be a starter at this level, in my opinion.
Was there any, reaction to where there was a quote from Lincoln Riley about the traditional matchup with USC and Notre Dame and down the road? Is how much of that is legitimate?
Well, I mean, I think it's legitimate because USC is at least that's not coming out of nowhere, right? Like, I think that's kind of throwing a trial balloon to see kind of how people react to it. And it's kind of typical for Lincoln Riley, right? I mean, it's like, hey, let's create as easy of a path as possible to get to a championship, which I think is just such incredibly flawed reasoning. So if you can schedule your way to the playoff, it doesn't mean you're a better team once you get there. It just means you got there. If you're not a very good team, you're still going to get your butt kicked once you get there, right? But that's kind of how Lincoln Riley thinks, and that's why I don't think he's ever actually going to win a championship. But I'll be shocked if at the end of the day, the people that really pull the strings at USC, which are the people that give the money to the football people and the leaders, want to lose that rivalry. I just don't think that makes a lot of sense. Like, does it make sense to play Notre Dame and LSU in the non-conference? No, it doesn't. Does it make sense to play Notre Dame and Ole Miss in the non-conference? No, it really doesn't. Not when you're in the Big Ten. But to drop both of them, that's the same as like, hey, I don't want that smoke in the SEC, so I'm going to run away to the Pac-12. That's basically what that says to me, and that's who Lincoln Riley is, in my opinion.
Brian, good stuff, man. Great stuff. Appreciate it. Irish breakdown. Craig, you have one more? Okay, thank you very much, Brian. Great segment from you, and also glad we were able to answer a question from the chat room. Coming up, we're going to look at the a pot of 4 teams from the Big 12 playing this week, and we'll tell you who they are and discuss them in the next segment.
Yeah, I like that he addressed that playoff question as well as anybody could have answered it. For all of the talk about, well, they're going to force Notre Dame to do this. They're going to force Notre Dame. This is going to force Notre Dame. Like, there are still moves that in theory could happen, but I think he basically deflected like a lot of the darts thrown about what Notre Dame's going to be forced to do or be maneuvered into doing ultimately. I think he successfully put the shield up on a lot of those because you can't they can't host a playoff game. they can't get a bye. Like, so they'll play Tulane in South Bend in December, and it doesn't change a whole lot. Like, you don't change something just because you don't get a bye in the first round, and so like I've seen that a lot, or things of that nature when it comes to Notre Dame, and I'm glad he brought that up because that's something that kind of gets lost. All the new agreements they've reached. I mean, we've heard about the TV side, but the apparel deal and so on and so forth. So they're actually sitting in really good shape right now, and obviously the future's uncertain for everybody, but I definitely enjoyed a lot of what he had to say. I mean, even that was a good segment. I appreciate Brian.
He's locked in. And I mean, randomly a chat room question, and bam, just like that, he had the answer.
Yeah.
Or opinion.
The funny thing is, like, I always say this is going to force, like, no, Notre Dame forces. Like, Notre Dame's the one who forces people.
Yeah.
Ask the ACC and why they have Stanford and Cal right now. Like, that's not because NC State was like, we really love the Bay Area. We don't get to, we don't get to go there enough. Tony Bennett was right. They didn't say that. Notre Dame was like, you guys should do this. And the majority of the conference was like, yes, Father. Yes, we will. That's what happens. And so when Notre Dame and Jack Swarbrick and now Pete Bavacqua are out there on this committee, they're making the rules, and they're smart enough to know that, like, all right, if you want to stay independent, you're not going to get to have this bye, but all the other rules don't really apply to you, so finish 12th and you're in. And they're like, sweet deal.
Yep. No matter the independence, obviously they're just fine. When we come back, Craig and Paul Catalina, I'm David Smoak. We will have 4 teams playing this week. Big 12. We looked at 4 yesterday. We'll look at 4 more today, and then tomorrow, and then on Friday. Coming up, KU, Kansas State, Iowa State, and West Virginia. And looking ahead to them, and, of course, some of the expectations, but their opening game. This is 365 Sports. Ideal MRI, Dr. Rob Maxey, one of the partners, an idea that when he came up with this ideal, just a tremendous business. Any business that can, believe me, they make money. That's what they're there for. But they also save you a ton of money. Ideal MRI has state-of-the-art imaging machine. And they save you a ton of money because the MRI you get from them is $497. The average is $1,100. And I have spent in my day, and of course I learned along the way, I thought my insurance was going to take care of one a few years back, many years back. It was $1,600. $497 or less every single time for an MRI that your doctor wants, you want, because there's something that creates pain, something where you can't sleep at night, you can't function, you're always hurting. An Ideal MRI will get the results or get the evidence with the imaging that your doctor needs that you could also understand. So then you can move forward on how to fix that. Ideal MRI, $497 or less every single time. Ideal MRI in the Central Texas Marketplace off I-35 in Waco.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Midway Athletics and UBO Business Services are 2 names that exude winning. From Midway's top Central Texas Star test scores to college-like extracurricular facilities and UBO Business Services industry-leading customer service scores, you can trust in these 2 winning programs. Best of luck to Coach Joe Gillespie and the Midway Panthers. And look at your sticker on your office equipment. If it does not say UBO, call Midway Class of 2020, Duff, Daxon, Dane, or Sean Hunt at 254-709-2101 or ubeo.com.
Our good friend Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jewelers here at 365 Sports. Now, Brad, people who watch and listen to our show know I'm a double-time customer for you, engagement ring and wedding band, and you guys do that great, but that's not all you do at Boozer's Jewelers.
Absolutely. And I always like to say, it's a new year. It's a great way to start the year out. Go through your old jewelry. Go through your wife's jewelry box. Go through anything you're maybe not wearing, something that's broken, something that you're not using. We do a massive amount of custom work. We can take your old jewelry, old diamonds, old watches, and we can convert it into something special for you and make a one-of-a-kind piece of jewelry. And if that's not something you're interested in, a great thing is we can turn that into cash. So we buy gold, we buy diamonds, we'll buy Rolex watches, any kind of heirloom jewelry, anything that's maybe passed down to you.
Boozer's Jewelers, where do they find you, Brad?
We're at 1025 North Valley Mills Drive, right on the corner of Lake Air Drive and Valley Mills with the big clock on the corner.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. This segment is brought to you by Busch Light, the sound of refreshment. The coldest and smoothest light lager there is. Find Busch Light near you.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. Paul Catalina, David Smoak, and Craig Smoak here with you. And we have created these pods, Craig's idea, a really good one, of different ones we're going to discuss each week. They're going to rotate around days, but first we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, but it might be 4, 1, 3, 2 or something like that, depending on how the games go each week and which ones bear talking about.
Yeah, the pods will stay the same just for clarity. So you'll have Oklahoma State, Baylor, TCU, Texas Tech. You'll have Iowa State, West Virginia, Kansas State. You'll have the American 4 plus, or the American 3 plus BYU, since they all came in together, and the Pac schools all came in together. So I just thought that was the simplest way, rather than trying to do region and be like, put all the Texas schools together. It's just simpler, more clean cut, I think, to keep them kind of how they arrived. So we did this yesterday, and we'll have it, I guess, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, since he and I won't be here on Fridays. And it's just I think a clean way to make sure we talk about every game for at least a second, especially early on when there's 16 of them. Since you're not playing each other, you can kind of lose track of some of them. So this is just a way to kind of touch on everybody every week and give them some level of time.
Yeah, I still feel like I was overruled on this deal.
What happened was I said, how about this idea so we make sure that we get everybody covered, and not like with a guest, like we actually talk about them. And I said, and we'll do it in these pods like this, but what we'll do is we'll shift it so like not every Tuesday at 5:30 will be the same exact pod every week. It might be one or the other. So that will be different. The groupings will stay together, but he came in, he's like, let's do Cincy, Baylor, UCF, and like Utah. And it's like,
we needed training wheels before
you're there's
playing.
Nothing connecting those schools, really.
Well, yeah, there is. There's 16 in the Big 12.
This is just way clean cut because it just makes more sense to remember them this way because they're grouped regionally or they were kind of set up this way. So yesterday it was pretty simple. Your Texas schools that had been here already plus Oklahoma State, and now we move on to this next grouping.
Well, here are the 4 that I didn't agree with this, but these 4 make sense. Kansas playing Thursday night. That's tomorrow night. Taylor McHargue is going to be at that game. Jalen Daniels, Lance Leipold, ranked in the top 25 against Lindenwood. They're playing, of course, games in Kansas City. In fact, this game will be in Kansas City.
I think this is get Jalen Daniels back loose, see what you can do, score as many points as you can in 2 quarters, and then take his shoulder pads off.
Yeah, I mean, they are 45-point favorites in this game. 45-point favorites. So this is going to be a bloodbath, and if not, that would be the bigger story. But really, this is, getting out there and getting Jalen Daniels loose and on the field once again. And, like, he gets a lot of the attention. I'm really excited to see Devin Neal. Like, I think Devin Neal's an exceptional player. I'm really excited to see the receivers. But here's Jeff Grimes. The first time we've seen him since he was at Baylor, and they had an offense that was absolutely miserable to watch for a variety of different reasons that aren't all his fault, but he inherits a pretty good group of talent and obviously a program that's hit its stride and is in a good place. So I'm curious to see how he just finds his way in and you know, what that looks like compared to Andy Kotelnicki, and if there's any drastic differences. I know it's pretty much going to be the same concepts, but it is different. And there are people who believe that that's a loss, Kotelnicki to Penn State, that's going to be where they dip a little bit. And I'm sure Jeff Grimes is going to be thrilled to prove people wrong, and I'm sure he's thrilled to inherit some of the weapons like Jalen Daniels and Devin Neal. So, this is not a game you're sweating at all if you're the Jayhawks. This is more about just kind of what do they look like with the changes from the offseason and just our first glimpse of them this season. So that's really all this
The
is.
young program, Lindenwood, started in 1990. This is just their 34th year. They're located in St. Charles, Missouri. I didn't know much about them. It's one of those games that probably had an opening. Remember the games against Albany and Long Island that Baylor played because of that Law Tech moving on to a different non-conference game. And so Lindenwood, the Lions. And, again, like you said, this is pretty much where you would think Kansas can just pick their score. Also, that's the Thursday game. Saturday, Kansas State, home against UT Martin.
Again, same thing. Like, get Avery Johnson and Dylan Edwards and DJ Giddens loose. Get some continuity along that offensive line that's gonna need it because they lost some big time players. But ultimately, score as many points as you can, and when the band plays, the starters come out.
Yeah, they are 37-point favorites, so this is very much like the Kansas-Lindenwood game, except for Kansas State is playing at their actual home field, that's something I do wonder about with the Jayhawks. If there's anything, too, like not playing at your home field, like if that's just weird moving around or what, I don't think anything would be significant enough to, like, change this season. But it's just an interesting wrinkle to, what is otherwise just a regular year. K-State at home, I mean, there's not much to this one. I'm sure if you're a K-State hardcore, there's more like down in the depth types of things. Like this freshman, I would love to see him when we're up by 35 in the third quarter. Those kinds of things I think is what you're looking forward to as much as just health, getting out of this game, taking care of your business, getting Avery Johnson out like by halftime, if not earlier, and, just flexing your muscles basically and saying UT Martin, here's your money, pat on the butt, and good luck to you the rest of the way.
Yeah, and UT Martin, they're not. Yeah, this is a game where they're getting paid to play a non-conference game, and some teams. I saw some notes that I forgot which is a big boy school. 2 games, non-conference games, they're paying people $1.8 million each to get their brains beat in. We see some of these games. This won't be one of them where teams get paid a lot of money and then they. Like South Alabama, Oklahoma State. But this should be a Kansas State, do their thing, move on to the next game. Iowa State at home against North Dakota. Part of that conference, of course, most of it's been North Dakota State, Northern Iowa, and now South Dakota State that have had their great runs. North Dakota and Iowa State.
Now, Northern Iowa beat Iowa State a few years ago, if you remember.
Yeah, that's why I brought them up.
So I don't think Iowa State is going to get caught napping when it comes to this. North Dakota is not North Dakota State. They're not South Dakota State. They're not Northern Iowa when it comes to that level. So this should be another one of those, again, let's see what you got. Let's get the starters out. And I'm curious to see if the offense is a little bit more because you've got so many guys coming back that it's a little more wide open than it has been. You've got really good wide receivers. You've got Abu Sama at running back, Rocco Becht again. Like, what steps does he take? And this will be interesting to see that for me. I think the defense is going to punish people. I think the offensive line will be solid. That's Iowa State. That's Matt Campbell. But will we see maybe an extra level of hot sauce on this offense because of the kind of depth that they have across the board, which I'm not sure that they've ever had this many skilled players that are this good. They've had like one guy at each position, like a good quarterback, a good running back, a good wide receiver, a good tight end at the same time, but never maybe everybody where you've got 2 or 3 good wide receivers, really good tight end, excellent running back, a quarterback who's on the rise, all those things happening at once.
Well, I mean, Taylor Mouser taking over as Iowa State offensive coordinator, so there's going to be a different look there as he took over that job this offseason from Nate Shieldhouse. So I think, again, this is one of those that were like the other two we're talking about in terms of the competitiveness that you're expecting, more of a get your feet wet type of a game as much as anything and stay healthy and just work on the things that you felt like as a coaching staff you needed to work on in this first game. Hopefully you empty the bench. I do know with Iowa State as well, this is the 50th anniversary of Jack Trice, so there's going to be, I'm sure some celebrations planned, and this is the first stop on the celebration of the 50 years. You got the new uniforms. I think they're wearing like their cardinal, I think is the appropriate term for their shade of red. I'm looking forward to just, seeing how those look. They were one of the many teams in the league that changed those up a little bit this offseason, and the red ones look pretty good from the pictures I've seen. So, it's cool to see those out there in live action. But this is a game where you fully expect Iowa State to name their score, have fun while they're doing it, and hopefully just get out of there healthy. But I wish we had more compelling matchups, honestly. But these 3 games, they're all like 30 plus 40 point favorites.
The Fighting Hawks, North Dakota.
Oh, first time these 2 teams are playing too. So just another little thing, like if you're into little tidbits like that these 2 teams have never played before. So
this is a school that's won 668 games. Now again, Iowa State's a heavy favorite. They won a national title in 2001. They've won a bunch of conference titles. That conference just brings, they've won a lot, but they've also won a game or more against the FCS, against the FBS teams because of the history we mentioned. So there you go with North Dakota. By the way, what was the game we mentioned before that? Not Lindenwood. UT Martin, the Skyhawks. I like that's a unique type mascot. Now, the game that is could be a tremor, a game that could be an absolute adrenaline rush, a game that could be huge for West Virginia, but also for the Big 12 in Morgantown, West Virginia. Noon, 11 o'clock Central Time kickoff, West Virginia, Penn State. I can't wait.
This is my favorite game of the week. It really is. And look, A&M and Notre Dame and Miami and Florida and Clemson and Georgia and all that, USC and LSU is great. I just think this one has so much more intrigue on it, given West Virginia's belief that they can be something more than what everybody outside of the Big 12 and outside of maybe Morgantown thinks they can be. And, they were not quite ready to play Penn State last year, but I think they learned a lot about themselves in that game, and it fueled them on for the rest of the year to that 9-4 season. So I absolutely, and I'm picking West Virginia to win this game. I think they're going to win. I think that they may bring back couch burning. They'll be so fired up in Morgantown. This is a huge thing for them. I think Garrett Green very rightfully should feel a little bit snubbed by everybody talking about all these quarterbacks all over the place, and then he kind of gets lost in the shuffle. They've got a really good running game. Offensive line's back. Defense should be pretty salty. So I see no reason why they should let James Franklin and Penn State roll in there and beat them.
Yeah, I think it's really unfortunate that College Game Day will not be at this game. I get there's, the tie-ins that you have and why you make the decisions you do of where you're going to broadcast, but not have McAfee at one of the biggest West Virginia games in a while, at least, this early in the season with the amount of hype that they have. I think that
he's
sucks.
Broadcasting his show on Friday from there, I think.
Yeah, okay, yeah, he is?
Yeah,
all right, cool. Well, that's great
so,
if he is, yeah. So if he's doing that, that's freaking awesome. I haven't seen that, but I believe that would be a really smart move, because when I initially saw that, I was like, oh, damn, game day is going to be Notre Dame and A&M instead. So I was thinking of McAfee on set, but if he'll be there the day before, then that's great. But, yeah, I'm really torn, because I totally see how this happens and how West Virginia wins this game, and yet I just can't pull the trigger all the way. Penn State, 8-point favorites. I still feel like they win this game. I think it's going to be a hell of a game, though. I think Paul hit a lot of the high points in terms of the disrespect or just lack of respect for West Virginia, nationally, regionally, certainly not locally. They expect to be pretty good, and we talked a good bit about Neil Brown and just kind of the attitude that's emanating from there nowadays. I think they're going to give the Nittany Lions absolute hell. I'm not so sure. Garrett Green doesn't outshine Drew Aller. If you're gonna put on a big performance, this is the game to do it. So I can't wait to see this, because West Virginia, you talk about chips on the shoulder. Everybody says it to the point of like it doesn't even mean anything, but they've got a real chip on the shoulder that's been hanging on there for a while now, and they're pretty good based on what we know. So this is a huge opportunity. That crowd's going to be insane, and the atmosphere, I wish I could be there, but I lean Penn State, but I will not be shocked in any way, shape, or form if they're going nuts in Morgantown on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, there's a press release, and I had seen this earlier in the week. He will be doing his show from the campus.
Okay, great.
At Green Space outside the Life Sciences building. That's his alma mater. And you can start to enter the area as early as 9 o'clock Central or Eastern on that Friday.
That's great. I didn't know that, so that's news that I welcome with open arms, that he'll be able to have a little element of the atmosphere there this weekend. And I like that I don't watch regularly, but I see things here and there. And I know that his relationship with West Virginia has really I don't think it's repaired, because I think it was as much McAfee himself as anything else, just like in his head, kind of how he felt. But it seems like he and West Virginia are like this more than they have been in a really long time. And I think that's incredible for both sides.
Ren Baker has obviously been a part of that.
Yeah, he's helped in mending some of that. I think some of it was Pat himself. But either way, that's awesome, because I do think when you're a league that's talking about getting attention, whether it's Ari and TuneIn or who's bigger than Pat freaking McAfee, man? Like right now in sports media. So, yeah, being a West Virginia guy, talk about those Mountaineers. And if they win, he'll be talking a whole heck of a lot about them. So that's a nice little ace up their sleeve potentially as well.
All right, I'm trying to do the interesting nuggets. You guys break down usually the games and all that, and I can do that too. But this is the 61st meeting. Penn State has dominated this rivalry. Just like if you have for years, Texas dominated OU. That series now very close. Or A&M and Texas. And
wait a second.
What?
It's getting closer.
It's not
that lopsided.
There's a lot of these rivalries. This is the 61st meeting. Penn State has won 49 with 2 ties.
It's like Texas Baylor is more apt than Texas
that's
Oklahoma.
Really good. Yeah. West Virginia did win 3 in a row in the 50s, but since 1956, West Virginia's won twice. Now, they haven't played every year. There's been a gap. There was a huge gap from 92. They played, and then they didn't play again until last year. So there's been gaps in this series. But this is one of those that's very one-sided. West Virginia did well in the 20s, 30s, and I think it was the 40s and 50s. But, man, it would be a hell of a win for West Virginia.
For a lot of reasons.
Yeah,
a lot of reasons.
I haven't made my pick. We don't have to do that until we have to do that. But hell of it. And again, Penn State has won the last 5 dating back all the way to 1989.
Yeah, I think West Virginia fans are aware of how lopsided this has been. And yeah, I guess for those that don't know, now you're aware of how lopsided I guess it's been. But you know what? The thing about that, none of that matters one single bit heading into this weekend. That doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean anything. Because all that matters is what happens on Saturday. So, yeah, I mean, Penn State, there's a lot of reasons to go with them. Just that you think they're the better team. The history perspective, there is something to that a lot of times. But I think if West Virginia was ever ready to jump up and change that record a little bit and add another notch on their side of the win column, this is percolating like a golden opportunity to be able to do that.
I had somebody, I agree.
And thank you for the scheduling, by the way, because we just ran over 3 other games. And I know everybody's going to play like a better opponent. Not everybody goes like big, matinee, bright lights on the first weekend of the season, but West Virginia, definitely the most interesting game in the entire league this weekend. And so, yeah, I'm glad that they scheduled the way that they did and putting a big-time game out there this Saturday.
I don't know, our Graw, the last time Penn State went on the road for a non-conference game was Auburn. It didn't go very well for Auburn that game. Might go the same way. So thank you very much.
Could.
Argraw for that note. I don't have the history, but I do remember, like there's that stat about Alabama when they played Texas in Austin. I mean, like they played games away from Tuscaloosa, but most of the time it was neutral. It'd been forever since they had done a non-conference game on the road. And so there's some teams like that when you have a 100,000-seat stadium, you don't go on the road very often. You don't. All right, so there's that. We covered them all, at least those 4. Tomorrow, who is in Pod 3? Pod 4 is Utah, Arizona State.
Who would be the 4 that entered before them?
So then we'll have tomorrow will be
the 4 that entered before them.
Yeah, Cincinnati, Houston, BYU, and also Gus Malzahn.
See how that makes it easier to remember?
The Fighting Knights.
Rather than let's just get the most random collection of 4
win this
possible.
Battle of the pods before
Iowa State, UCF, Baylor and Utah. Yeah. That's what you were trying to say. I think I'll remember that.
I got to keep you guys focused.
Well, look,
which is hard.
That was the AD HD attacking you, where we told you, and then it got in your head, and then it
But now everybody can remember. It's pretty simple, and hopefully you'll get it down sooner rather than later. But yeah, just the 4 newest schools, the 4 previous new schools. And then,
the 4 Midwestern schools with West Virginia.
had to put them somewhere.
Yeah, and then the Southern schools.
Because if I did geography, then it's like, then you got West Virginia and UCF, and I guess you could do that, but somebody's going to get left out because out west, there's there's more 5 teams now because of BYU.
5 in the Mountain Time.
So you can't do 4,
yeah.
4, 4, 4 perfectly, but pretty close. Pretty close.
I will forget it. Every week I'll be asking you guys for it just to be annoying.
And then we'll do.
That's my life.
Do you want me to make you like a fancy thing that you can save?
Yeah, just send it in an email so I can put it up in front of my desk at the condo.
And then we'll do Pod 5 on Fridays. It'll be UConn, FSU, Miami,
Clemson,
and Clemson.
Bob Kramer, I see why Smoak sits by himself.
Yeah.
That's David Smoak, by the way. Yeah, you're right. Now,
by the way, I'm just going to tease. There could be a new look coming.
Yeah, I don't know if I like it.
It doesn't matter.
I've kind of got
the train's on the track.
When you guys had me over here back in the day, it was just not. It did not work. But this here, I've enjoyed it because I can put all the papers and trees that I kill here in front of me on the desk.
Yeah, you are single-handedly killing the Amazon rainforest. But besides that, when Colt was sitting here the other day, it just reminded me of we needed some breathing room here.
Yeah.
Everybody did because it's just so close fit. All 3 of us up here. So when Colt was here, it was fine, but it did remind me because it's been a while of damn, how did we do that long? We were so close together.
Yeah, no, I thank you very much. I enjoyed the space too, I guess.
Yeah, well, you got a whole corner to yourself, so I would hope so.
Oh, my goodness. By the way, Emery's here. Dialing up 365 Sports, 10:30 tonight on the local CW. Garrett Ross has been here. He's been here a long time today, haven't you, Garrett?
Yes, sir. It's about a little before 9 a.m.
We did we start this week with the first week of the high school football season in Texas. I did a long high school podcast. Todd Dodge, the incredible coach at now Lovejoy, was one of our guests, as was a guy that Craig knows, Mike Owens, the former coach at Lee, who's retired. And there are 2 schools, 2 6-man schools, Milford and Strawn. I know you knew this, Paul.
Oh, yeah.
Are playing in Billings, Montana on Friday.
Why?
It's just one of those things. It just
I'm sorry. That's just so why those 2 schools in Billings, Montana, 6-man football.
Remember we did the game with the team out of Vancouver that played Groesbeck?
Oh, yeah.
Right? They played Groesbeck.
But if you're, my question is not that's cool. That's great. But my question is you're whoever put this together in Montana, and you're like, how could we do something a little bit different? And you decide, we're going to bring Texas high school football, but not just any Texas high school football. We're going to bring 6-man.
It's probably some 6-man studs in Montana.
That's cool, yeah.
Are they, I wonder if they're calling this, the Lonesome Dove series because it's Texas to Montana.
Garrett, you don't have that graphic still, do you? I sent him the graphic.
No, I don't have it still.
Well, it's cool.
I talked to Jose Cervantes, who's the coach. Ronnie Crumpton used to be there, but Jose's there. They left on a bus yesterday morning. I think it was at 8 o'clock, and they got to Billings, Montana, with multiple drivers and buses at 10 o'clock that night.
Okay,
they couldn't even get these kids on a plane.
Yeah, that's a long trip.
We need to fix that next time around. Let's do a GoFundMe. I mean, for 6 men, you're talking about 20,
I bet
plane
they're having
tickets.
the time of their life.
Also, to clarify, I totally misunderstood because I thought you were talking about them going up there to play each other, and I was like, that's why it doesn't make sense. So they're playing Montana teams. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I didn't get. You're like, Strawn and Milford are up in Montana. I'm like, that's random. Why would they pick those schools? No, they're paying Montana. Okay, now it makes sense. Yeah, now it makes sense.
I bet expenses are paid. I bet the amenities when they get there are pretty cool. They're staying in a cabin somewhere.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be.
Could we have gotten them on a Southwest flight?
Well, that's up to
so that I want the comfort
Although
for the
these
players.
days they would have had a flight delay and they couldn't make the game in Hawaii.
But I'm for those of you watching outside of Texas and wonder what's great about some of these small towns, Strawn is the place that has the greatest chicken fried steak on planet Earth.
What are you talking? What about
Mary's.
the place up in
Burleson?
Burleson?
No, Jake and Dorothy's in Stephenville, second greatest. Mary's and Strawn.
What about
greatest.
the place in Burleson?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No, not even close.
Okay.
I mean, they're good, but no. Mary's and Strawn. Gary, you ever been to Mary's and Strawn?
No, I have not been to Strawn. I played Strawn, but I haven't been there.
Oh, I haven't been there.
You and fried chicken.
Oh, it's chicken fried steak, so
Same
it's different.
Anybody in fried chicken.
Yeah,
maybe not you, but
the place in Kansas City. What was the name? What's that place?
Oh, Stroud's.
Stroud's, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. What's the one in Burleson? I know we got a break. For
that is. God, what is it?
Don't
Babes.
tap.
Babes Chicken Dinner
Babes,
House.
that's right. Okay. All right. When we come back, Paul Catalina just around the corner. Who said the comment about Milford? Smoak, you're a buzzkiller today. Boo. West by God, Virginia. That's from Kim. Damn, you're right. All right, when we come back, Paul Catalina's top 5. This is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on, and the people that shoot tens of thousands of people have counted on over the years when it comes to getting the most out of their car, the most out of their automotive needs, and getting their automotive needs taken care of. The good folks over at Richard Carr are the ones to help you do that and keep your car in tip-top shape, whether it's oil changes, buying a car, new pre-owned, getting some body work done, as I have over there, which was a seamless process. They are your one-stop shop, and right now it is time for football, so they got big savings going on cars and trucks at the Richard Carr Kickoff to Savings event. How about the multi-pro tailgate, the first-class interior, and the power to get any job done? Well, you can do and have all of those things with the GMC Sierra, which is the truck for Texans who want to drive the best. Right now you can save $9,000 on all 2024 GMC Sierra SLT trucks in stock with a 2010 or newer trade-in for qualified buyers. You can find Sierra trucks on the lot right now under $40,000. They have more details for you over at the dealership, but just one of their brand new offerings right now, the tricked out, loaded up GMC Sierra models. They've also got, as I mentioned a minute ago, a lot full of quality pre-owned cars and trucks. If you're looking to go that route as well, plenty to choose from. And you want value. You want confidence in the car that you're buying. And they've got that and more with the pre-owned cars and trucks loaded over on the lot. 100 highly inspected vehicles to choose from and price to move. And remember, their goal is always 100% credit approval. So just a couple of options, and they've got much more that you can explore on the website, in person, or over the phone. It's time for football and time for savings. So go and enjoy and take advantage of the Kickoff to Savings event right now at Richard Carr Motors.
Fantasy Sports EVO, the next evolution of daily fantasy sports. Tired of traditional fantasy sports where you spend hours upon hours studying individual players? EVO's unique team-based platform makes it easier than ever for all sports fans to play. No need to know individual players. Just choose your contest, select your teams, and enjoy the game. Whether you access our website from a desktop, mobile device, or the app, the experience is the same. EVO is for all sports fans. Join Fantasy Sports EVO and experience the evolution. For Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Welcome into the Top 5, presented by Texas Beef House. Go to TexasBeefHouse.com. Hey, auction going on. BidOnBeef.com, so make sure you get that done. Use promo code 365sports for $25 off at checkout. We are now to the coaching staff and the finale of the perfect college football team. Now, I didn't go through all the positions of coaching staff, but head coach, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, a defensive assistant, and an offensive assistant. So I went through, and if I'm going to build it, I definitely want these guys on my staff. So let's get started. We're going to start out in the backfield, defensive backfield, Corey Raymond, cornerback coach for LSU. This is his second or third stint. Yeah, second stint at LSU. Thank you, Garrett. And he is a big reason of the FSU DBs. He might have coached guys like, I don't know, Patrick Peterson. He coached, Maurice Claiborne.
Honey Badger.
The Honey Badger. Lots of other guys, tons of other guys that are all elite LSU cornerbacks in the NFL now. If I'm picking a coach in today's modern college football that can rope in guys who are going to be NFL and fight the power, so to speak, of what offenses are, Corey Raymond is the coach I want because he's going to have athletic DBs. He recruits them really well, and they want to come and play for him. Absolutely, because of the skins he's got on the wall. Now let's go to a wide receiver coach. You say, Paul, why not quarterback coach? Well, because this guy is the best thing that ever happened to any quarterback coach in Brian Hartline at Ohio State, possibly the nation's best recruiter right now. He is turning out NFL wide receivers at a clip like you would not believe. You see Chris Olave in the picture here, Marvin Harrison Jr. in there. Why do you think Jeremiah Smith didn't go to any school in the South and went all the way from Miami to Ohio State? Brian freaking Hartline. Absolutely. I'm not like Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Garrett Wilson.
I mean, there's so many guys in the very recent past that he has that are like Chris Olave, number one receivers in New Orleans, Garrett Wilson, the number one receiver in the Jets. I can go on and on and on. So this is a guy I want on my staff. He and Corey Raymond are like the mirror image of each other, right? Is that wide receivers, DBs. I want Brian Hartline on my staff. He'll be a head coach pretty soon somewhere, although he's got a sweet gig right now at Ohio State, and he's getting paid a lot of money for it, as he should. All right, let's go to the defensive coordinator. Yesterday, I told you guys, I told the staff this is who's going to be. I said it's probably going to be Glenn Schumann. Then I got to working on it, and I was like, well, hold on, wait a minute. Who's the best defensive coordinator in the country? The only reason Iowa has won any games in the last 4 years is because of this man right here, Phil Parker. They're elite because of Phil Parker on defense. He has been the lifeblood of that coaching staff, and Kirk Ferentz would tell you so. He is a brilliant defensive coordinator, and this is a dude I want. I mean, they're winning 10 games a year and not scoring points.
With like 3 stars and stuff.
Yeah, Phil Parker. If you took Phil Parker and gave him the talent at any of the bigger, take Phil Parker in the Big Ten and just walk him over to, say, USC, and what's going to happen there? Holy crap. And look, maybe his style only works in that kind of a way, but, man, it works really well. It works really well. Now, yeah, sometimes they've been gashed by the big-time offenses, but I don't think that's really his fault. If you watch, it's difficult to get to those blowouts, though. It's an uphill battle, no matter what, whether it's Michigan, Tennessee. I know Penn State kind of rocked them a couple years ago, but for the most part, they keep it tight. They're not messing around on defense at Iowa. All right, next up, Mike Denbrock at Notre Dame. This one, Garrett, kind of maybe stings a little bit because he was the offensive coordinator at LSU last year, then went back to Notre Dame. But he is the highest paid offensive coordinator in the country for a reason. And now with Riley Leonard, I think that's going to be fun to watch starting this weekend at Kyle Field with what Mike Denbrock can do with the Irish and maybe the best quarterback he's had at Notre Dame, not overall. But somebody just made a Heisman Trophy winner out of a kind of a cast-off from Arizona State. I mean, Arizona State was not all that sad to lose. This is why it was messed up there. Mm-hmm. They were not all that sad to lose Johnny Wilson and Ricky Pearsall and Jaden Daniels and the other guys that they've lost. Then, it was just oh, well, those guys didn't really, bummer, didn't really work out. Okay. And then Jaden Daniels hauls off and goes to LSU and has 2 great years and wins a Heisman Trophy. Johnny Wilson's in the NFL. Ricky Pearsall's in the NFL. They've done nothing but make big plays. Mike Denbrock took Jaden Daniels, who not a whole lot of other people wanted.
Nope.
Turned him into a Heisman Trophy winner. So if you can do that with Jaden Daniels, mind you, was a cast-off. He was trying to find his place. If people look back on the response of Jaden Daniels transfer to LSU, most LSU fans are like, oh, we're in this again. This is what it's going to be. We're going to have these, everybody else is going to be good but the quarterback. Nope, flipped it. Flipped it. One of the 2 greatest in LSU history, by far, him and Joe Burrow, and Mike Denbrock was a huge part of that. Now let's go to head coach. I know that the criteria should be somebody who's won national titles as head coach. I know it. I should pick Kirby Smart. I should. He's the best coach going right now, by far. But there's things that have been going on the last year that just kind of irk me. It's stuff that doesn't need to exist. And for that reason, I did go with a Kirby Smart disciple, though. Dan Lanning at Oregon. This is the guy I'd want. Perfect. No offense to Mike Norvell. Love you, Mike. Love you. But if I'm building the perfect college football team right now, I want Dan Lanning. And look, Dan Lanning has the guy who came in second on my offensive coordinator list, Will Stein. He's coached with the guy who came in second on my defensive coordinator list, Glenn Schumann. So all those things, he's the perfect guy for Oregon to meld the coaching skill with the machine that they can be NIL and business-wise, that they are. He's the perfect one. He's the perfect coach for the modern era. Plus, he's the first coach to say, no, guys, this is a destination job at Oregon. We're in the Big Ten now. Nike. We're not a Nike school. We're the Nike school. He's the one who's kind of grasped that more than any of the other parade of coaches who have gone there. And A&M would have paid him whatever he wanted. Whatever he wanted. There'll be schools in the SEC that do, and he's already turned one of them down. So,
turn the Mecca down.
Yeah, he turned down Bama too. He said no to Bama, and he said no to A&M. That's like an A list. That's an A+ team and a B+ team that he turned down because he's right now at admittedly an A-, but Oregon has potential to be A+. They have very, very huge potential to be A+. And Dan Lanning staying there. That's why he's my coach. I had to back off of Kirby Smart. I know it's going to seem dumb, but Dan Lanning, my coach, America's coach, like we said last week on the triple option. I think it's Dan Lanning. This has been the top 5. We're wrapping it up right now.
All right, Paul, thank you very much. I like Dan Lanning's fire. I like the way he takes things head on. Got to know him, not get to know him, but we saw him at that Sugar Bowl when they tied up Baylor like a pretzel in Matt Rule's last game in 2019.
Here's a note for you. We were just talking about McAfee in West Virginia, and y'all informed me that he was doing a show there on Friday. From Awful Announcing, Morgantown schools have closed Friday due to the anticipated traffic congestion because of the Pat McAfee Show live broadcast. So that's how that's going over in West Virginia. That ought to be a madhouse. But, yeah, I just saw that, and it was timely with what we were talking about a little while ago. So have fun, Mountaineers.
I saw
and Nittany Lions.
Yeah, the press release was that the parking is limited because school was in session.
Well, they're closing schools.
And they're closing the school. The power of his TV show.
College
also
football.
College football's interest, passion, atmosphere, and a rivalry. All right, thank you very much. Garrett Ross has been here for about 13 or 14 hours today, running various podcasts. Also, Emery Winter is magically getting ready for 365 Sports tonight at 10:30. If you have not, on the local CW, if you have not hit the like button, please do before you say goodbye. Spread the word if you haven't. Jack McKenzie's working on many things, everything. He's everywhere, thanks to him. Paul, thank you. Craig, we'll be back tomorrow. I know we have Sam Kahn, Max Olson, and there's another pretty old Matt Brown's going to join us. I'm David Smoak. Thank you all for being a part of the show and our sponsors. Good night, 365 Sports.